Please welcome to the stage Rachel Saunders and Frank Van Poppelen.
So many people here.
I know, this is so amazing. I love it. I love it. Look at you. Look at you. Look at you.
So many friends also. Can you believe, Rachel, this is the 7th time we're doing this.
This is amazing. Firebase, like 7 years of Firebase Summits. This is amazing. So amazing.
It really is. So what we're going to do first, we're going to...
Well, there's like people here. Mm-hmm. And we haven't seen people in forever. So we just want to thank you all so much for joining us in person. We're so excited to be in person. And we're totally live. Totally live.
It reminds me, I wanted to do I've been wanting to do this since I was a teen, probably. Because we're in New York, and we're live. And I know it's not Saturday night, but still, it's a Tuesday morning, and we can do this, right? Like, so Rachel, like, can I?
All right, if I know what you're gonna do, I think you know what you're gonna do.
Okay. It's live from New York. Welcome to the Firebase Summit. So it's been years since we've been able to do this in person. I'm really, really happy to see all of you. Yeah. This is my happy face in case you didn't recognize it.
But Puff, we also have people joining us virtually on the live stream. So welcome to all of you out there.
There you are.
So everyone turn around to the cameras and say hi to everybody. So they're all joining us. Hopefully one day you'll be able to join us in person, because hopefully every year we'll kind of do this again in person more. But thank you all for joining us virtually too.
And just so you know, I'm going to check the comments right as we get off stage, and I'm going to make sure that you all wave back. Okay. I'm just curious. I see quite some familiar faces, but I'm always really wondering, for who is this their first Firebase Summit? Yeah, so we love excitement here. Welcome. We love seeing people that have been here before and new people. It's great. I want to do a sort of like, I like to make sure that we're all the right amount of energetic, and as you might see, that's quite a bit. So we're going to do a game of clapping their hands. It's going to be great.
Everyone know how to clap their hands.
It's like, essentially, if you're happy to be here at the Firebase Summit, I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to clap your hands, right? And
we're going to warm up.
That's all. So, 1, 2, 3. I love that. I love that. Rachel, how many times have you been at the Firebase Summit?
Can I clap it?
Yeah.
And this one?
3 times. That's amazing, right? So what I want us to do, I want us to clap the number of times that we've been at the Firebase Summit. But we're going to do it special. You're going to keep clapping. Does that make sense? Okay. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm feeling warmed up. I'm feeling warmed up.
Now, whenever there's an exciting product announcement, I want you to do the same thing. Okay. Rachel, I think we're ready to kick things off, right?
I think we are, because I think it's one of my favorite parts of Firebase Summit.
So what are we going to do?
It's our keynote of what's new in Firebase. Because you know why this is my favorite part? Is because I get the lowdown of all the launches, but my favorite part is that you get to see live demos of all those things. So cross your fingers that everything goes fine, because they are live demos. But it's my favorite part, because you get to see all that stuff in real time.
Okay, now get our hands ready. So please welcome to the stage, Director of Product at Google, Francis Ma.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our 7th annual Firebase Summit, live from New York City. My name is Francis, and I lead developer products here at Google. And it's been a while since we've hosted our developer conference in person. And it's so energizing to have everybody here with us today. So whether you're here in the room or on the live stream, welcome. Now at Google, we firmly believe that developers play a critical role in making our lives better, whether it's in building apps to help people stay informed, or creating software to solve important challenges like global warming and climate change. And that's why we're investing in the tools and technology to help you build a better future. For example, through our investments in open web projects like Chromium, we're pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the browser. Or our modern Android development tools and APIs and technologies to help you lower your development costs and build high-quality apps that run on billions of devices. And with our open source framework like Flutter, that lets you help build beautiful multi-platform apps all with a single code base. Now, we also recognize that as app development advances, the work that you have to do and the tools that you rely on have also become more complex. And sometimes it's hard to find the solutions that fits your tech stack. And so we're committed to delivering flexible and integrated solutions that lets you use the best of Google and third-party tools so you can build the highest quality apps and the most trusted experiences that people can rely on. And one of the ways that we're doing this is through our continuous investment in Firebase, Google's app development platform. And today, we're excited to share new updates and features we're making to help you make your app the best it can be. And to share more, I'm going to pass it off to Kara.
Thank you, Francis. Wow, this is different in person. Thank you for coming, everyone. I'm Kara Yu, and I work on the product team for Firebase. At Firebase, our mission is to help developers succeed by making it easy to build and grow apps users love. We bring together tools, technology, and backend services all in one place. Millions of developers, from startups to enterprises, use Firebase to reach and engage billions of users. We love hearing about the delightful and innovative ways you're building with Firebase. All over the world, developers are solving challenging problems to help improve the lives of people in their communities. Let's take a look at some of our stories.
It's like making me emotional just actually talking about it.
Where can I go to use my skills for something good?
Oh my God, this can be solved using technology.
The amount of vehicles in the cities is just too much. Traffic congestion, pollution, noise. Moya's mission is to put 1 million cars away out of the streets by providing a new way of mobility where we pool people together but still give them a comfortable space. Firebase helps us to monitor our applications and to guarantee we are not breaking any existing features when we add new ones in the Firebase test lab.
I got to know boutique owners and I got to understand the problem that they were having tracking their inventory. So what Faves does, it helps them keep track of what they purchase. They know exactly how much they spend and when the goods are supposed to arrive into the stores. With Firebase, we have been able to easily scale. So now we're in 15 countries and 48 states.
Like, how can we increase education effectiveness? How can we help teachers do their jobs better? ClassKick is a collaborative platform on which students do all their work and get feedback and collaboration from their teachers and peers. Can we do that at scale? Can we do it at the scale of tens of millions of students and teachers? The answer is yes, thanks to Firebase.
It's a wonderful thing to just see this positive effect that Faves has to these entrepreneurs that empower them to actually contribute and do better in their community.
When we achieve our goal and people leave their own private vehicles at home, we will have less noise, less emissions, and bring back more green space for the people.
The biggest reward in any of your days is when you see those wheels turning and students they're really engaged and they're working on something, and all of a sudden it's that light bulb moment.
It's just wonderful to see the positive impact that these developers are having on their communities. As a parent, seeing ClassKick lower barriers to education and support kids as they learn is personally really meaningful. These stories are what inspire us to keep making Firebase a more comprehensive and powerful platform that suits your needs. In this keynote, we're excited to show you how we're strengthening Firebase's integration with popular developer products, both from Google and the open ecosystem of tools out there, so you can accelerate app development, run your app with confidence, and make your app the best it can be for your users and your business. Let's get started. Now, the journey of building an app is exciting. For some people, it starts when they get this great idea for a web app, and then they buy the domain, and that's where the journey ends. Reality is, the journey from that light bulb moment to actually getting an app launched can be a complex and time-consuming process. Firebase provides fully managed back-end services like Firestore, so you can get your infrastructure set up quickly. We also offer products like Firebase Hosting, which you can use to deploy fast-loading and secure static web apps without all the hassle. But today, we're making it simpler to deploy your apps with popular dynamic web frameworks. To tell you more, let's welcome David on stage.
Hey everyone, my name is David East, and I'm a developer relations engineer on the Firebase team. And building with frameworks like Angular Universal and Next.js can be an incredible developer experience. And I say that because I built a thing or two with them. But when it comes to deployment, there are a few painful steps. See, these frameworks, they're server-driven. So you have to write the Cloud Function. And then you have to wire up that Cloud Function to Next.js or Angular's production server. And then you have to configure rewrites in Firebase.json. And after all that, you still have to manage the build and the deployment all yourself. But what if you didn't have to go through all these steps? Well, today I'm excited to announce that we have released an update to Firebase Hosting that streamlines development and deployment with modern JavaScript frameworks, all in a single Firebase command in the CLI. So just by running Firebase deploy, the CLI will now detect the framework, run the build, generate the Cloud Function, its configuration, and handle the entire deployment. So let's see how this works. So right here, I have a Next.js app. And usually when I'm building with Next.js and Firebase, it's all these commands I gotta remember. I gotta remember to boot up Next.js's server, Firebase emulators. It's kind of a lot. So today, if I want to handle it all while I'm in development, I just run one command. And that command is Firebase emulators start. And if I want to start with a local seed of data, I pass in this import flag, and I point it to where it's stored. So now when I kick this off, it's going to do a lot. It's going to detect what emulators am I running. And then it's going to detect that we're in a Next.js code base. It's going to automatically kick off the build. And it's going to boot up Next.js's dev server. And then once it does that, it's going to boot up all of the local emulators that I'm running. And it's going to forward them all through the emulator hub. And once it's done booting up, it's going to give me this table that tells me all the emulators that are running and on what ports. And so I can see that hosting is running on localhost 4,999. So if I go here and click refresh, we have a changelog app. And this is going to be something we're demoing today because we have a lot of features that we're going to be deploying. But as you can see, it doesn't really do anything interesting. So let's change that. Let's add some releases. So one of my favorite things about using Next.js is the simplicity of the get server-side props function. Because like everything you run in this function runs on the server. But it's like on a client file, but this runs on the server. I don't know, it's kind of mind-blowing. It's cool. So if I want to get all of the releases, I can call this magical get releases function, which I promise it actually does something. It goes, it creates a query of all the releases in the collection, and then just gets the snapshots and returns them back. And so now that I have all my releases, I can just pass them back as props, save, and when I come back over here, we have all of these releases just server-driven, live reloaded, and I didn't have to run anything else. So this is cool, but I kind of wanted to do something a bit better. Like it's always those small pieces that you want to add to the apps. And so I wanted to add this thing where I can count up the total features that have been shipped in the app. Well, I guess if I wanted to do that, I would have to do the count. I'd have to like create a Cloud function that updated on, that's a lot. So like any good developer does, we're just going to make a to-do. And we're going to just like do the counter thing in V2. All right. So now if I want to do a deployment, all I'd have to do is write Firebase deploy. And just like how we saw with the emulators, it's going to do everything but for production now. And I could run this, but deploys take time. So I'm just going to pull this out of the oven. And right here at firebase.press, we have this fully server-rendered app on Firebase hosting with Next.js, and I didn't even have to write a single Cloud function. So what I showed you right there isn't just for Next.js and Angular Universal. We have added client-side build support for Vite, Preact, Lit, and Svelte. And we hope that these improvements make it easier for you to deploy your web apps. And you can get started by checking out the Firebase hosting documentation today. And these updates, they are now available in preview. So we hope that you'll try them in your dynamic web apps. And we're committed to making this a great experience for you. So your feedback is very valuable. So send us an issue on GitHub. Back to you, Kara.
Thanks, David. Wow, wasn't that a seamless deploy? Now let's talk a bit more about your database, the heart of your backend. Firestore is our NoSQL document database that allows you easily store, sync, and query data for your mobile and web apps without ever touching a server. But even with a reliable database, it can still be hard to perform scalable aggregations and manage data retention policies. For this reason, we're excited to announce 3 big updates to Firestore to help you simplify these tasks and speed up your app development. To tell you more, I'll pass it back to David.
Thanks, Kara. Queries are one of the most important aspects of a database because they help us organize and arrange our data. And over the years, in Firestore, we've added support for all sorts of queries, like in, not in, and array queries, and they give you more control over how you query your data. But we knew something was missing. Aggregation queries are one of the most requested features in Firestore, like ever. So up until today, if you wanted to get the count of a query, you would have to write a query and then count all the matching documents in the collection, or you could store a count in the database that updated on every single write operation. So I am incredibly excited today to announce preview support for a native count function in Firestore. Yeah, seriously, it's awesome. So now when you run a query or read from a collection, you can get the count of matching documents. So let's see this one in action. So remember how I want to do the count? Looks like I don't have to wait for V2 after all. So the way that you get the count is a lot like any other query you would write with Firestore. So I need to start out by getting an instance of Firestore. And then from there, I need to figure out what query do I want to write. Where is my collection? Or even better, what about the sub-collections? And with that, collection group queries. Because I have a whole collection of releases, but all the features are stored as sub-collections. So if I want to get the count of all of the features across all releases, I can do that with a collection group query. And now from here, I can call the brand new get count from server function and then pass in the collection group. And this is going to give me back a snapshot. And then within this snapshot, I can get the total feature count by calling snapshot.data.count. And now when I pass this back to my UI, save, we can see that we have over 1,000 total features shipped. And count queries, they scale with your traffic and with the size of your database, preparing you for growth. And speaking of growth, one of the core principles behind Firestore's design is scale. Firestore helps you focus on building features instead of worrying about dealing with the complexities of scaling up a database. But now, Firestore's scaling capabilities are better than ever, as we've improved its core capability to handle database writes and connections without any hard limits. And we've also made it easier to maintain a healthy database that only stores what's relevant and necessary. Because as your database grows, some content's going to become outdated, or you might have policies around data retention where you have to delete data after a certain period of time. And in the past for this, you had to spin up a cron job, and you had to determine which pieces of data needed to be deleted at what specific times. But wouldn't it be easier if you could just tag a document with an expiration date? Well, now, Firestore now has configurable time-to-live policies, or TTLs. So you can specify a field in a document, and that determines its lifetime. And Firestore then deletes each document after that date has expired. So now you don't have to pay for the data anymore, or you don't have to worry about it sticking around past your retention policies. And all of these Firestore features that we've covered today are available for use. So check out Firestore's documentation for all the details on getting started. And back to you, Kara.
Thanks, David. By adding the count query, removing hard caps, and adding TTLs, our goal is to reduce the time you spend managing and querying your database so you can focus on what's important, building your app and business. All right, so now that you've figured out how to store and manage your data, you need to keep it safe. A lot of apps ask users to log in order to provide a customized app experience. But building a secure authentication system is a really hard task with a lot at risk. Firebase Authentication is an end-to-end identity solution that makes signing in and managing your users easy. To tell you more about how we're protecting user data, I'm going to pass it to my teammate, Tyler.
Thank you, Kara, and hello, everyone. It's so great to be back in person. I'm Tyler Crow, a product manager on the Firebase team. As the world gets more connected, it's harder than ever to safeguard user data and protect customers' privacy because of the increased frequency and sophistication of attacks on systems. Today, I'm happy to announce 4 features we've built in partnership with Google Cloud to bring together the best of Firebase Authentication and Google Cloud Identity Platform. First, we've launched multi-factor authentication, or MFA for short, to help you safeguard your user accounts even if their password is compromised. We've also added support for the OpenID Connect standard and SAML, so you can use a wide range of sign-in methods like Slack and Discord without having to wait for custom integrations. And to help you create custom requirements for signing in or signing up, we've launched blocking functions. Blocking functions run synchronously and can enforce any logic that Cloud Functions for Firebase supports. And finally, to make sure all changes to your authentication settings are auditable and that you can have insight into your authentication usage, we've added full authentication integrations to cloud logging. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at how these features are in our app. So going back to the changelog app, let's build a blocking function that will restrict signups to the Firebase team. Now, I can add the custom logic that only allows people to create accounts if they have an email ending with Google. And it's important to combine this feature with email verification. You really want to make sure that the people actually own the emails they're signing up for. Let's check this out in the changelog app. So I'm back here in our changelog app, and I'm going to sign in a user using that blocking function we just created. Now, you'll notice we have the local host here with the sign-in, so we're not going to use a real email, but it still has to end with .google@google.com to make sure that it really is only a Firebaser who's adding to these changelogs. Now, since I'm on the emulator suite, I'm not actually going to check a real email, so I can just go over into our terminal, go find the emulators, and I'll find the URL here that would normally show up in an email. I'm going to grab this, I'm going to drop it in right here, and this lets me know that not only did this customer register that email address, but they also verified it immediately. Now, I can move on to the next step of adding multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to add a number, and just like we remember, we're on the emulator suite, so it's a fake phone number. And instead of doing an actual phone verification where I have to make sure I have signal inside this auditorium, I can get it right from the emulator suite again, the 6-digit code. So with that, I've not only added a blocking function, but I've also done an MFA. All of these new features are available in an upgrade called Firebase Authentication with Identity Platform. Go check it out in the Firebase console and upgrade today. So after making sure your app's sign-up is secure, it's important to set up security rules to make sure each user has access to the correct data. To help you with this, I'm pleased to share another new feature we've built to protect access to storage files, cross-service rules. With cross-service rules, you can now query Firestore from security rules in storage to protect access to files. Let's see how this works in our changelog app itself. So I have images for each release, and I want to make sure the only person who can update that image is the release author themselves. Previously, this was tricky because the data to allow access used to live in Firestore, not in storage. I used to have to create a function that would read from Firestore before allowing that image to upload into storage. Now, with cross-service rules, the security rules in storage can reference a document in Firestore directly, no function required. It uses a new method called Firestore Get to fetch authors and compare it to the user trying to modify the image. These rules are available today, and we hope you'll give it a try in your apps. You all probably noticed that all the features that David and I demoed were on the emulator suite. I'm excited to announce that you can test all of these new features we've mentioned in the emulator suite itself. It's a safe, local environment that lets you rapidly iterate and test before adding those features to your production app. And to top it all off, I'm excited to share that the emulator suite has graduated multiple services to GA. So if you haven't tried them before, spin up the emulator suite with the Firebase CLI. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Kara.
Thanks, Tyler. OK, so we've already covered a lot, from fast deployments of your modern web frameworks and hosting, to new features and functionality in Cloud Firestore, to enhanced app security and cross-service security rules. We're making Firebase work better with other Google developer products and web frameworks, so you can get to the fun part of app development as fast as possible. Now you have your backend set up, but before you can start building features, you'll probably need to integrate services from a few third-party tools as well. To tell you more about how we're integrating your apps with the broader ecosystem of developer tools, let's welcome Sonakshi on stage.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonakshi Vatal, and I'm a user experience designer on the Firebase team. Finding the right API that fits your app's use case can be time-consuming. You can spend hours going through documentation, and even when you find the right API, implementation, it can be a pain. And let's not even get into the time you spend maintaining the API. With Firebase extensions, you can install prepackaged solutions that extend the functionality of your apps without the need to research, write, debug, or maintain code on your own. Since launching extensions in 2019, we've been hard at work, adding more extensions that help you integrate core services in your apps. Everything from payment processing to search to marketing. But with this growing number of extensions, it's become harder to discover and find the right extensions for your use case. So today, I'm super excited to unveil the new Extensions Marketplace to help you browse and find extensions quickly. Let's take a look. So I'm going to extensions.dev, which is the new Extensions Marketplace. And here it is. I can find new and existing extensions, filter by common use cases, and learn how to use extensions. You know what? I'm actually building a mobile app on the side where I sell my favorite coffee-related goods. And I want my customers to be able to order on the go. So I need in-app payments. Let's see if I can find an extension to help me with that. I'm going to go explore extensions. I see a search bar here, so let's just use that. Search for in-app. And I see in-app purchases by Purchasely. I've heard of them before and about their no-code payment solutions. So let's go look at the details. I can read about the extension, about how it works, and the configurable parameters that are available here. And I see this big button to install it in the console, which seems pretty straightforward, right? So that was pretty easy. I can now install and integrate the Purchasely extension into my mobile app, giving customers the ability to order on the go. The Purchasely extension you just saw is new and available on the Extensions Marketplace today. Our partners have also launched 2 other extensions. The Melee Search extension that allows you to easily search and index Firestore, and the Vonage extension that enables you to add video chat for customer support. But that's not all. Since extensions launched, you've been asking us how you can build your own extensions. And today, we're giving you that ability with the new Provider Alpha program. In this program, you can package up your solutions for common repetitive app development tasks and reuse them later. So go check out the Extensions Marketplace at extensions.dev today to discover Firebase extensions and sign up for the Provider Alpha program. Back to you, Tara.
Thanks, Nati. With the Extensions Marketplace and new extensions,
I see.
Let's play those road.
Firebase works better with the broader ecosystem of developer tools.
Fairly.
Save time and get to market faster. All right. Once you integrated features and have launched your app, you need to ensure your app is stable and delivers a high-quality experience to your users. So now let's invite Ibrahim on stage to talk about how Firebase provides you with actionable insights to run your app with confidence.
Thanks, Kara. Hi, everyone. Great to hear it back. I'm Ibrahim, an engineer on the Firebase DevRel team. Users expect your app to work as designed for their choice of device. So you want to make sure your app works across all devices and environments before you release it. Firebase offers products like TestLab, a cloud-based app testing product that integrates with your existing workflow and allows you to test your app on thousands of physical and virtual devices. But it's difficult to run tests on all the devices your customers use. Each type of test requires a unique setup and a set of different configuration steps. To simplify and standardize test configuration, I'm really excited to announce we've been working with our friends in Android on adding Firebase Test Lab support to Gradle managed devices. Amazing, isn't it? You can now get access to all the devices supported by Firebase Test Lab with a simple and consistent test configuration format introduced in Android's Gradle managed devices with just a single command line and without having to go into the Firebase console. To get started using Firebase Test Lab and Gradle managed devices, you can upgrade to the latest preview release of Android Gradle plugin 8.0. So now that you've tested your app and ensured it works across all the devices and environments, it's time to launch. But around the launch time, buggy apps leave users feeling frustrated, and some of those users may not engage with your app again. Firebase Crashlytics, a real-time crash reporting tool, helps you prioritize and fix your most important crashes based on the impact on real users. A few months ago, at Google I/O, we unveiled the App Quality Insights window, which helps you discover, investigate, and reproduce issues reported by Crashlytics within the context of your local Android Studio project. This integration helps you identify where crashes are occurring across your code base and navigate from crash to code entirely within the IDE. We've heard from early adopters like Adobe that they love this new integration because it saves them time when searching for and linking crashes from the console to their code base. Now, we've upgraded we've graduated the App Quality Insights to the beta channel. And that's not all. We are still continuing to bring the best of Crashlytics to Android Studio with more features to further simplify your troubleshooting workflow. Let's look at them. First, we've added the ability to filter issues by play tracks to show you which crash events are happening in internal builds versus open beta versus in production. So you can prioritize what to focus on. And second, we have integrated signals from Crashlytics into the App Quality Insights. Signals analyze your crashes to uncover interesting commonalities and characteristics. They can tell you whether the issue is fresh, early, repetitive, or a regression. And finally, we've introduced notes so you can add comments to crashes to let your team know how your fix is progressing. And you can even close the issue right from the IDE. Thank you. As always, your feedback is extremely important in helping us improve the tools. So you can try out the new features of App Quality Insights today in the latest Canary release of Android Studio Flamingo. So with all the features we've added to App Quality Insights, you can track, prioritize, and fix your issues without ever leaving the Android Studio. In addition to making Crashlytics work better for IDEs like Android Studio, we are also improving our integration with cross-platform development frameworks like Flutter. Thank you. Flutter allows you to build beautiful, natively compiled, multi-platform apps with a single code base. And today, we are launching support with apps built using split debug info. This is a recommended build option that can dramatically reduce your overall application size, giving your end users the best possible experience. Apps built with split debug info will now see fully symbolicated stack traces in Crashlytics to help you pinpoint exactly where the problem occurred. You can upgrade to the latest version of Crashlytics for Flutter, get to Android support for now, and with iOS support available in the next few months. Thanks, everyone. Back to you, Kara.
Thanks, Ibrahim. As you just heard, we're taking important steps to integrate Crashlytics and Test Lab with Android DevTools to give you a more streamlined troubleshooting workflow. And not only that, but with Crashlytics, we're improving crash reporting for Flutter apps. Another way you can deliver the best experience for your users is to customize your app for their preferences. But customizing your app to suit individual user behavior and preference is impossible to do manually. That's where our latest remote config feature, personalization, comes in. Let's invite Steve to the stage to tell you more.
Thanks, Kara. Hey there. I'm Steve Wilbur. I'm an engineering manager working on Firebase. Part of delivering that great experience is tailoring your app to your users' individual needs and preferences. But doing that manually is a burdensome and time-consuming process. Remote config personalization can help automatically optimize individual users' experience to maximize the objectives you want using the power of Google's machine learning. With personalization, you provide the configurations that define different experiences in your app. Perhaps you'd like to vary the styling used in your checkout flow. Then you specify what type of event you'd like to optimize, like in-app purchases. And personalization takes it from there, applying the right configuration for each user, taking their behavior and preferences into account. Developers like Halfbrick and Ahoy Games have used personalization to grow their business by increasing ad revenue and in-app purchases. And today, I'm happy to share that we've made this an even more powerful tool to help you achieve your revenue goals. Now, in addition to optimizing for a particular type of event in your app, personalization also takes into account the value of that event. So, for example, you can go beyond maximizing the total number of in-app purchases. You can also optimize for the dollar amount of those in-app purchases. And this is really easy to set up. Let's do it together right now. All right, we're going to start a personalization to grow my revenue by tweaking the frequency at which I show ads in my app. Here I am in the remote config dashboard. And now I'll scroll down to my ad frequency parameter. This controls how often I'll show ads to my users on a per-hour basis. To personalize ad frequencies, I'll edit this parameter, and I'll choose to create a new personalization. Here I can provide the different numbers of ads per hour. Let's say 3, 5, or 8 ads per hour. And next I can choose my objective. I want to maximize my ad impression events that I'm logging to Google Analytics. And those events also include the value of the impressions being served back from AdMob. So I'll choose to optimize for the sum of those values. Next, I'll choose to target all of my Android app users. Then I'll give my personalization a name. I'll save it. And then I'll publish those changes so they go live to my app. I'll also need to make sure that my app is fetching that ad frequency parameter. But that's it. The personalization is now running. And we have already seen developers having success using this new feature. Lyrebird Studio makes a collection of mobile photo editing apps. And they wanted to tune the frequency of ads they show their users. But they knew there wouldn't be a one-size-fits-all solution. So they started a personalization just like the one we set up. They fed ad impression values into their app, allowing personalization to optimize ad frequency while taking into account the value of the ads being displayed. Developers that have spent time tuning their ad experience know how hard it is to get additional gains. But by setting up just this single personalization, Lyrebird Studio was able to increase ad revenue by 4% with minimal work on their end. To try out this feature, thanks. To try out this feature, head to the Remote Config tab in your Firebase dashboard. Back to you, Kara.
Thanks, Steve. It's amazing to see how Remote Config works seamlessly with Google Analytics and AdMob to optimize individual user experiences and maximize revenue using the magic of machine learning. Today, we share the many ways we're continuing to strengthen our integration across Google's developer products and making Firebase work better with the open ecosystem of tools so you can accelerate app development and run your app with confidence. As we look towards the future, we're invested in continuing to empower you to make your app the best it can be. On behalf of the team, thank you for joining us today and continuing to invest your time and voice in helping us shape the future of Firebase. We'll be around for the rest of the day, here and online. So please stop by and chat us on YouTube to say hi. Now, what's new in Firebase is done, but we still have a ton of great content still to come, starting with Ask Firebase Next. So now let's invite Puff and Rachel back to the stage to tell you more. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Please welcome back Rachel and Puff.
That was a lot of updates, right?
It was.
Okay,
Stay.
Like, we're running a bit late, but that's okay. I don't think I had anything else planned today, so we're all good. Hey, Livestream, thank you for all the comments on YouTube. It was awesome to see them. Now, they're going to set up some chairs behind us, so let's pretend that doesn't happen, and then magically they're there, and we can start the Q&A, right?
Focus here.
Eyes up front. Okay, Rachel, what was your favorite launch?
Okay, I have to say, just because I work on this product, is Crashlytics, the integration into Android Studio, the App Quality Insights window. It's just amazing. No more flipping back and forth. Oh my goodness. And it highlights everything, and the fact that it's we're going forward more and more features into the Flamingo. Oh, it's great. Great.
I love that one indeed, yeah. I saw lots of excitement, but of course my favorite is anything that mentioned Flutter. Right? Okay. One thing I love doing on days like this is answering questions, though, right? Is that also one of your favorite things?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have a solution to see our favorite thing happening, maybe? So everyone here, be ready to ask questions. Everyone on the virtual stream, where are they? There you are. Hi. Be sure to ask questions in the comments.
Yes.
And we're going to be answering as many as we can do here. So please welcome to stage Kristen Richards and Peter Friesen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone in our audience to Ask Firebase Live.
And welcome, everyone, on the live stream from wherever in the world you're watching us. The best thing about the Firebase community is how diverse it is, and from all the different places where you are, welcome.
Awesome. And you might be thinking, what is Ask Firebase Live, and how does it work?
So, Ask Firebase is our show where you get to ask us questions, and we will answer them. And Ask Firebase Live is the show that we run here, where you get to ask the questions, and our panelists that we will call up in a minute will try to answer them. So please be gentle in the beginning, but we will roast them for sure. But how can you ask questions? That's probably what you are asking yourselves now.
Great question. So if you're here in our live audience, we have these nifty things called catch boxes. You can see Rachel over there with one. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and Puff and Rachel will be on the lookout for you, and they'll toss one of these catch boxes your way. Hopefully they're accurate. We'll see. Can't make any promises. And then just hold that mic and ask your question. And when you're done, toss it right back over to our lovely hosts.
And if you're on the live stream, it's also very easy to ask a question, and I think you already started doing that. So just use the live chat, ask your question. Our team will catch those questions and project them onto the screens we've got down here. And we also asked you on Twitter to send us your questions in the past few weeks. So we've got a couple of these, and we will pull them up here as well. And if you're on Twitter right now, you can also ask them. We'll be monitoring it, and we'll see your question on here, and we might answer all of them. So keep them coming.
Okay, let's get on to the main event, shall we? Let's meet our panelists. So first up, he's an engineer and entrepreneur leading the technical direction for the Firebase build products. He's passionate about the web platform and making developers' lives easier each and every day. Please welcome to the stage, Michael Bly.
When she's not working on making your apps perform faster, she works as a volunteer at Google's Computer Science Summer Institute, bringing the next generation of high school students up to speed. Please give a warm welcome to Melissa Lopez.
Air 5. So he is one of the people behind Firebase Functions and Firebase Hosting. And he also knows a thing or two about site reliability. In his spare time, he enjoys chasing his daughter around the playground. Let's give it up for Daniel Lee.
He used to be a high school teacher, and now he teaches people around the world how to use Firebase. And he also works on integrating Firebase with Flutter. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Arthur Thompson.
Okay, let's get into it. How's everybody feeling? Feeling pretty good?
Good.
Okay, let's start out with a couple warm-up questions, get the cobwebs out, get ready to go. So we're here in New York City, which is a food mecca. So I'd love to hear about your favorite type of food, and also from the keynote, what was your favorite announcement that you heard this morning?
Yeah, I think in New York, my favorite type of food is open very late. My flight got in after midnight, and there were still a ton of restaurants open, which definitely does not happen everywhere. And as far as launches, I have to say I am partial to the launch for support of web frameworks in Firebase Hosting and Cloud Functions.
As is our audience.
Okay, my favorite food. I feel like as a New Yorker, I gotta say pizza. But I'm pretty particular about my pizza. I really prefer a square, thick Sicilian slice. I want a thick cut pepperoni, and that's gonna keep me happy. So if you have any recs, I will take them. But my favorite thing that was announced today in the keynote, I think it's Crashlytics improved Flutter support for apps built with split debug info. So just anything that gets folks more able to enjoy the best of what Crashlytics has to offer makes me excited.
Yeah, I was at Koreatown last night getting some soft tofu spicy soup, so that was really good. My favorite launch was the extension marketplace. I'm so excited to see what the developer is gonna bring to the table, so very excited to see that.
Yeah, for me, I live in California, so any type of pizza that's in New York is probably better than what I can get in California, so I'll say pizza. As for the launches, definitely the aggregations that are coming to Firestore, like Count. I think those are going to help a lot, so that's my favorite one.
Great, thanks everyone. So let's kick it off with a question from Twitter, and you'll see it is very fitting. So the question is from Omar, and he asks, I'm developing a social media app. How do I restrict files to only be seen by the followers of a certain user? Melissa, I think that's for you.
Yeah, so we've been hearing about use cases like this for a really long time. So we're excited to be offering a better way to deal with something like this. So you heard the answer in the keynote already. The answer to this is using cross-service security roles. So if you have your list of followers' user IDs in Firestore, but the files that you're trying to grant some access to are in storage, you can now call firestore.get to make an easy lookup to see if the requesting user ID is in that list of followers' user IDs. So it's that simple.
Nice. Let's take another question from Twitter. So we heard about it a lot in the keynote, but we have someone on Twitter asking, what about the future of Flutter in Firebase? I'm going to throw that over to Arthur.
Yeah, sure. So the number one thing about that relationship is that we're very committed to it. And over the past 2 years, we've made a lot of progress. If you had a look at the repository, it's getting a lot better than it used to be. And so we're continuing to improve the quality with things like Crashlytics support, improved plugin support. We're also using the Flutterfy UIs to make integration with things like Auth and Firestore easier. So we're going to continue to work on those plugins and make that experience better over the coming months and years.
Cool. All right, folks, so get ready to ask your questions. We're going to take one more from Twitter, and then it's up to you to go into the live questions. So just raise your hand and wave at Rachel and Puff. So the next question is from Eric. If I have different environments like dev and QA, should I create multiple Firebase projects? And if so, how do I connect my app to the different projects? Michael.
Yeah, so we definitely do recommend if you have like a production and a staging environment, you should create a separate project for each of those environments. And our tooling, like Firebase CLI, is actually built to work this way. So if you have a prod project and a staging project, you can run Firebase deploy to one and then just change the project and deploy to the other. And all our tooling is smart enough to know the differences and everything that needs to happen. As far as in your actual application, it depends on the platform. In web, you're just going to want to call initialize app with the project-specific configuration. On iOS, you can create multiple plist files within your project or within your directory and switch between them that way. And in Android, you can create different build variants for different environments. So different ways to target different projects from different platforms.
Great. Let's take a look at our audience here. I don't see any hands up, but don't you want to test out Rachel and Puff's arms? Their accuracy. I think I see one way in the nosebleed section. Let's see what you got.
Color chart. White?
Yeah, there you go. Oh, she doesn't want to do it. There we go. Nice.
Hey.
Good. Nice work, Rachel.
Thank you.
On the other side.
I'm Thomas. I came all the way up from... Oh, OK.
It's a mic. You got it.
I'm Thomas. I came all the way up from Uruguay. Very excited to attend this conference. Thank you so much. So I'm really excited about the extensions marketplace and the fact that I can build my own extension. I wanted to know a little bit more about that, how to join the alpha group. I see the form is not available yet. Are there going to be any guides of the best practices to build our own extensions and share it with the community? Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great question. I'm going to throw this over. Daniel?
As for alpha sign-up, I'm not sure where that is happening. Does anyone know?
I think that should be open and ready to go. And if it's not, that might be something that we can get fixed pretty quickly.
OK, it's open. So as you know, within Firebase, we have an alpha program. So you can go there and sign up for the alpha, not just for extensions, but we have lots of different products that we want you all to test out and give us feedback in and be part of building a better product. So that's how you can get access to it.
As for the best practices, there are reference talks that you can consult for building extensions. But the really cool thing is that it's really just like building a Google Cloud Functions or Firebase Functions. So if you're already familiar with that, it's a matter of like parameterizing like collection paths so that other people can use your code. So if you're already good with that, I think you're already good.
OK, great.
So I see several hands raised over there. So Puff, can you get the mic over there?
Sure, I got it. Oh. Is this the mic? Oh, yep. Hello, I'm Sam from Australia. Nice to meet everyone. Thank you. So there is this one question that I've had for a few years, and it's when is Firebase hosting going to allow dynamic subdomains so that clients that perhaps sign up to use your extensions from this new extension marketplace can see their data on a subdomain on Firebase hosting, so you don't have to, I guess, use another service. Instead, you can just keep everything in the same console.
OK, good question.
I can probably take that. I think what you're asking about is sort of wildcard subdomains, so you can have star.mycompany.com as a Firebase hosting domain. That's definitely a feature request we've gotten a number of times over the years. I can say that we are at work on a number of improvements to our custom domains infrastructure. Wildcard subdomains aren't a part of that work, which should arrive soon, but it is something that we are still looking at for the future. So nothing concrete to announce right now, but stay tuned.
Okay, great. Any other questions live?
Hi.
I see a few over here if we want to
Hi, I'm
toss
turned
the
off,
chat.
I think. Hello?
Catch boxes.
Here's the box. How's the box? Can I talk to it? Hello?
Okay, go
Hello?
ahead.
Yeah, there's your mic. All right. Hi, I'm Rick, based out of Brooklyn. I have a question around aggregation. Is there a timeline for other aggregation functions such as sum?
Arthur, is that?
Yeah, sure. So we don't have a timeline yet, but obviously there are aggregation functions that we are working on besides count. So stay tuned, but definitely look out for some new aggregations coming in the future.
Awesome, thank you.
So I just see that we've got a question from Twitter around count as well. So I want to follow up with that. So Edward Smith asked, can we use Firestore count with security rules? So Melissa or Arthur?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
So maybe for that one, you could come by the Ask Firebase Lounge, and we can chat a bit more about that one.
OK, cool. All right, next question from the audience over here.
Behind the back.
Another question about counting. I was wondering if the query takes longer the higher the count is. For instance, if you're trying to count a very large collection with millions of documents, would it take longer than one that only returns a handful?
My understanding is that that should not increase the duration, or the duration of the count is probably going to be, or the duration of the query is probably going to be impacted in a similar fashion to how you would get all of the results. It does have to be computed on the back end. So there will be some penalty or some additional time, but I don't think it's going to be significant.
And do we get charged for the reads that's happening there?
I can answer that one, because I was looking it up just before this. There's actually sort of a new type of billing that's been introduced with the aggregation functions. So count is charged based on sort of a bucket of 1,000 documents that match. So if you have 1,000 documents that match, that will be charged the same as one document read, so 1,000 times cheaper. If you have 1,500, that'll be charged as 2 document reads. It rounds up, and so basically it's 1,000th the cost of a document read to do a count.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So while we queue up a live question, I'll take one on Twitter, and then we can get the catch box where it needs to go. So I saw that Cloud Functions for Firebase v2 launched earlier this year. What are the benefits over v1? So Daniel, do you have that one?
I'm pretty excited to talk about
Okay.
this. We announced Cloud Functions for Firebase version 2 earlier this year in I/O. So it builds on top of Google Cloud Functions Gen 2, which builds on top of Google Cloud Run. And this means that you can get all the features that is available on Cloud Run. One that I'm most excited about is concurrency. So before, when you're using serverless functions, you get a single request, and the runtime has to process the request before it receives the next one and starts processing. And for things like Node.js, this really doesn't make sense, because Node is built to be concurrent. So you can ramp it up to ramp up the concurrency so that a single container instance can respond to multiple requests at the same time. And when you are using Firebase Functions v2, we will automatically set up concurrency to be 80 so that you're using maximum amount of resources that is available on that container instance. We think this is going to help with your cold start time and also minimize the amount of container that has to be spun up to receive traffic for your website. So pretty excited about that one. One more thing that I want to add is that Google Cloud Functions v2 integrates with EventArc, and there are a lot of Google products or Google Cloud products that is going to integrate with EventArc. So you can expect a lot more triggers to be appearing for Google Cloud Functions v2 today and forward. So very excited about that journey.
All right, one more question from the audience. I see people raising their hands up there. Far right
Right, in the far back. Okay. Thanks, Peter.
Peter's testing you.
Get some exercise.
Oh, really?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep,
yes.
Go ahead.
Awesome. My name is Casey, all the way from Jersey. I have a simple...
Just Jersey.
I have a simple question. Say I'm working on an app like Zoom, and I would like to integrate streaming features, video chat, live chat. Is Firebase working on any feature that would allow developers to integrate something like that instead of using another service, then use Firebase for data? Are you guys working on something that would allow users to integrate live video conferencing, something like that?
Anyone want to take this?
I mean, I can say that I know that using the existing Firebase products, I've seen people do experiments using that as a WebRTC controller to do that kind of like multiplayer streaming type scenario. But I'm not aware of any specific Firebase products that we're building for that use case. So you might be able to play around with our existing stuff, but nothing new to announce that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think one area that I do know is that, as I mentioned, Cloud Functions for Firebase v2 builds on top of Cloud Run. Cloud Run has a streaming option that you can enable, so definitely look into that and see if you can play around and see if you can share that knowledge with us. I would appreciate your experience.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to Twitter. So one of the types of Crashlytics signals is early crashes. Can you help me understand what this means?
I know this one.
Melissa.
So if you're not familiar with signals in Crashlytics, they're basically Firebase's way of highlighting some interesting characteristics about a crash or an issue that Crashlytics is reporting. And so if an issue is marked as having early crashes, it means that this crash tends to occur early in a user's session in that app. And so a little bit more specifically, when you see this signal, it means that for a large percentage of instances of this particular crash, it's occurring within the first 5 seconds since app launch, which is really early for users to be running into a crash in the first 1, 2, 3 seconds of your app. So that's what we mean when we say early. As we saw like in the keynote, this is not the only type of signal that Crashlytics offers. We also will highlight things like fresh issues, repetitive issues, regressed issues. You can see them all highlighted in the Firebase console, so you can even filter your view to see just all your fresh crashes, just all your repetitive crashes, etc. But again, like we saw in the keynote, you can now also see signals in the App Quality Insights window in Android Studio, which I think is really exciting. So whether you're new to Crashlytics or new to using signals in your workflow, we hope you enjoy and that you let us know what you think.
Let's take another one from the stream. So Hassan asks, personalization for remote config is a great feature. How much time and how many users are needed for AI to optimize? You can take this one.
You stumped our group. I actually know that we have a few folks in the audience that I think that can help. Steve.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we made eye contact.
Give him a catch box.
Oh, here, Steve.
Oh, the catch
Oh,
box.
perfect.
It works both ways.
Nice. Wait, do I just talk into like this? Wow, this is super cool. Yeah. Hey, in terms of how many users and how long, there's a minimum, but it's quite small. If you have, if it's a production app, it's seen any kind of regular usage, you'll hit that minimum. And the algorithm will sort of learn over time and get better. We tend to say it usually like hits its peak performance after about a week, but you'll start seeing results after a day or two.
Great. So it sounds like a low barrier to entry to get started with personalization.
Yeah.
Okay, Catchbox. Now that you have it, Steve. Oh, I thought maybe we'd test out Steve's arm. Any other questions in the audience? And Steve will toss it your way.
They're in the middle.
Over here?
Hello. Oop, there we go. Hi, my name is Ben. I work for a school district just down the road near Philly. I'm working on an app for student registration. The new feature for expiring a document sounds really interesting. Is that date adjustable after the document is set?
I believe it is. So I'm not 100% sure on this, so you might want to check the documentation. But I believe that the time to live is actually set by a field in the document. And so if you change that field, that will effectively change the time to live. Another thing to note is I don't believe that the time to live is like an exact time. So like if you set it for midnight, it's not going to be for sure deleted at like midnight plus 3 seconds. I think it's an asynchronous process that sort of cleans up the old records. But it's a good way to control your collection size if you have time-based data that you don't need old records for.
Thank you. Yeah. And I just want to jump in there too. As Michael mentioned, it's not an exact thing. So you could expect like a order of hours on when that cleanup will take place. So in your application, you would have to have your own logic to filter out those soon to be deleted documents. And so we have a workshop on that with the Flutterfire workshop today. So if you come by, you'll see that in action.
Cool. Can we take another one? So I think right there in the middle, there are 2 people who are raising their hands. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice throw. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, this is Jay Prasad. I'm from Pennsylvania. Actually, I have 2 questions. I am developing an application on offline usage. So I am looking for like the text search, like Algolia. It's Algolia working only on online, but I am looking for the offline. So is there any timeline for that?
I can't offer you any timeline on like a native full text search for Firestore. I can say that at least on the web platform, which I'm most familiar with, there are a variety of offline indexing open source libraries. And so you could probably feed your Firestore data into that and use that as an offline index. And I'm sure that similar things exist for Android and iOS, but nothing directly from Firebase.
Okay.
Right.
The next question is like a similar. It's a offline file sync. So is there any other way to do that?
I'm sorry, offline?
The file sync. So if I upload the file on offline, so when it comes on online, so it should be like a syncing.
Does anyone else have experience trying to work with storage offline? It's a good question. I don't have best practices for that one, but I know that there are a bunch of experts here, so maybe come find us in the Ask Firebase Lounge later.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, let's take another one from Twitter. Shubham asks, what do you suggest for new developers where to start? Maybe, yeah, let's go around and every one of you can give a tip. Arthur.
I would suggest start with the docs and the emulators. It's a really good way to get started with all of the products, or at least the build products offline. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, when I started, I followed through the Firebase Code Labs. I think we have a pretty extensive library and really fun. So I recommend that you try that.
My recommendations would be Code Labs too, but thinking of another one as well. There's a wealth of videos out there. So there's videos that get posted throughout the year. There's also videos from the community that are really useful. So being able to kind of walk through a code lab kind of with another person virtually, like in a form of a video, could also be a nice place to start.
Yeah, and I think I would echo what everyone else said, but like I think one of the coolest things about Firebase is since we have such a big community of developers, there's just a wealth of information everywhere. So if you learn better through a tutorial blog post or a code lab or a video, like all of that stuff is available. So whatever suits your learning style best, I say go for it.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I don't shout out the GDs. So we should, seek out the GDs in your area. And they'll help you get started too.
Like Google developer meetups, right?
Yeah.
GDs, yeah.
Oh.
Good catch, Melissa. So lots of ways to get started. Also, there's a sample project in Firebase. So if you want to look at what the different products and console looks like with real data in there, you can get a feel for what it'd be like for you. So another thing to try out. OK, other questions. I see a few over here. So Rachel, take your pick.
All right, so I'm not going to be a baseball coach, I swear.
Hey, I'm Ashwini. I'm coming from India. I have been using Firebase from around a decade now.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, I saw Hotstar over there. I've worked at Hotstar in the past, and now I'm working at PayU. So the question actually comes with A/B testing. So we have been using A/B testing a lot, and it works like a charm for both Android and iOS. I've been thinking that can this A/B testing framework be leveraged and be used at the backend, right? Where our backend services will fire certain events. It feeds into the A/B testing framework and it delivers the result. So the question is, are you guys thinking or building in that line where you can support A/B testing framework as a REST API or an app accordingly? Yeah.
Good question. Folks on the panel?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that it's something that has come up before, and we've talked about some internally. I sound like a broken record a bit on these, but we try to keep the roadmap close to the vest because we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So it's something that I don't have any immediate action on, but it's something that we're keeping an eye on because we know that people want to be able to experiment and A/B test in all the different environments, and server side is definitely one that I'm particularly interested in. So it's something that we would explore, but nothing to announce.
Yeah, and if I could just add, you're here, and we're super happy to have you. So please, leverage all of us, being in the same room, and let us know your use cases and the things you care about. We care about too. So please give it to us, and yeah, we're here to have an open ear today.
And that's not just lip service. It really does impact what we build and how we do it. So please come and talk to us, and it definitely influences what we make and what we offer to you all. And congratulations on 10 years using Firebase. I feel like we should be asking you the questions.
Here's another one from the stream. Any chances that Firebase storage will be able to provide thumbnails for images? Daniel, maybe?
I think I don't know exactly about Firebase storage teams, but I do know that extensions, one of the more popular extensions is to respond to storage events and automatically generate thumbnails. So if you're trying to solve that problem, definitely check out the extension to see if it's going to suit your need. But from the extension team, so I would first look there. But as for Firebase storage, is it going to natively support thumbnail generation? I'm not sure.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question, and we'll take it from the audience. And we have Batman over here. Yeah, Puff, there you go. When you're wearing a Batman shirt, you know you're going to get called on.
I don't want to say that, but yes, I'm Batman. My name is Leonardo del Valle. I came from Venezuela. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
Okay, my question is very simple. First, congratulations with the Flutter plan, because I think it's amazing. It's going to work a lot with all plans. But I have a question about AppSheet, because we have been working with low-code platforms, and AppSheet has some URLs with Firebase. Is possible the same features like Flutter in AppSheet? Because we think AppSheet is going to be the future for the clients. Everyone is going to work with low code, and will be amazing if you can do some backends better with Firebase and AppSheet. Thank you.
Yeah, I think right now we're going to depend on what is provided on the underlying platforms for the short term, but definitely wherever we can make those adjustments to have a more uniform representation of AppCheck on the Flutter level, we would do so. But we would definitely start with using the underlying supply of those checks so that we can get the same type of security. And then we'll try to advance that beyond what it is now to be more uniform across platforms.
Great. Well, folks, this has been an amazing session. So many hard-hitting questions. You definitely gave everyone up here a run for their money. So thank you both on the live stream and here with us for all of your really thoughtful and insightful questions.
And I think we should thank our panelists here who are brave enough to come on stage and face your questions. So let's give them a round of applause. So if you have any questions that were left unanswered, if you are on the stream, then keep on asking your questions in the stream or go on Twitter, use the hashtag AskFirebase and ask them, and we will pick them up and answer them. And if you're here on site in this room, come find us later. We're easy to tell apart. We have those kind of really bright yellow shirts. Some have yellow shoes. We'll be at the Ask Firebase lounge afterwards, or find any Firebaser and ask them your questions. We'll be happy to answer. Speaking of yellow shirts, I think we will soon see two very famous wearers of yellow shirts, Rachel and Pav.
Please welcome back Rachel and Puff.
I always love it when... Hey, I'm not on for once. I always love it when we're double cute. I love these things, by the way. They told me I couldn't hold on to it, but I totally do. OK, who's ready for more questions?
I don't know if I think people are ready for maybe a coffee.
Coffee?
Yeah, a coffee. Maybe
you mean like we had during the keynote out there?
Yeah.
I had what was the Fire Cortado?
I personally had the Crash Latte. So check out the coffee bar, the coffee roasting bar, because we're about to
have a break, a very short break though. But after that, we're kicking off all kinds of cool demos. So we're going into a break now. But if you come back here at
11:30.
So you have to run. We will kick off a bunch of Ignite talks, which are short talks, slightly longer than a lightning talk, but shorter than other types of talks. And we have a ton of those.
So if you don't come here, you can also check out the expert-led classes. So there's 2 of them going on right now. Check out the schedule. You can see which ones are going on. Those are like some more like live coding kind of things where you actually get hands-on coding time. So check out those if you want to like do something a little bit more hands-on.
And then we have lots of demos going on. So we have the pinball that we had at I/O on larger screens on that side. We have the Hack Firebase Challenge.
Yeah.
Where did my Sparky plushie go? I had a Sparky plushie earlier. Did he run away again?
Why is that important?
Well, it's important because in the challenge, you have to hack the Firebase security rules of a project. And if you do, you have a chance to win a Firebase Sparky plushie. Really? I'm going to find him and keep him in that case. That's awesome. And if you're online, hey, Livestream, please keep asking questions in the chat. We have people there who are dying to help you.
And Puff, don't forget the Livestream folks. You also can do all those demos as well. So just go on our Firebase website and you can do all those types of demos as well. But if you do have questions, they still need to be in chat.
Ask Firebase Lounge is right over there. For everyone else, behind your left shoulder. And with that, I think we're ready to take everyone to a brief break.
Yep.
If you're interested in the Ignite talks, back here in probably 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, 11:30.
Look, so many people stayed. Wow, okay, a lot of people are grabbing coffee, but I'm glad a lot of you are excited too. Rachel.
Puff, there is like thousands of people out there.
Yeah, but that's not fair. They have their own coffee machine, Rachel.
They do. They don't understand in line.
Okay. This, honestly, I love everything we do today, but this is one of my favorite things. I have about 25 of those, right? Because what are we going to do, Rachel?
I think we're going to show some.
Right, we're going to show some pictures. It says right here. I just missed it. Can we have some pictures that we took earlier today? There we are. So I love this venue because there's so much like cool pictures you can take. For example,
these are Google bikes on the wall.
Like don't write them here because these are vertically mounted, but we also have these where you can actually write. I haven't seen them in New York yet. Let's look at another picture. This was when it was still very quiet.
Yeah, this was like the before the craziness. This is people just kind of hanging out, doing the registration. This is what our scene looks like right now. If you're at home, this is what you could be at next year if you come join us in person.
Yeah, it's great to be back in person. We wanted to make sure you also know what we are seeing here. Let's go to another picture. Yeah.
This is our coffee roasting bar. So like this is all like our coffee roasting and things like that. hopefully you all are doing this kind of thing of sharing each other's experiences, because we're not always the ones that answer the questions. Sometimes you all know the answers too. So we really love that you all kind of share and share alike.
And I now remember, I had a Firestore Tortado. That's the one I had. You can make it at home. It's just like a cortado, but it's called Firestore Tortado. That's it. One more picture, I think. We love this venue here. We're live in New York.
Beautiful.
And it's gorgeous. We're on a pier. It overlooks Manhattan, both sides. This is downtown Manhattan. You can see the One
World Trade Center.
One World Trade Center right in this picture. And we love having everyone here. There you are. Okay. But what do we do next?
I think we're
Let's
doing
get back to the
our
scheduled content.
Ignite Talks.
I like that.
Ignite Talks. Get you thinking. Little snippets of things to get you thinking about some really cool things that Firebase can do for you.
What topics do we have coming up? We have 4, right?
We do. We have functions. We're talking about some things with Firestore. We're talking about the personalization and RC work. And we also have our newest GA product is our emulator suite. So if you're interested in any of those, stay tuned. And those are coming up for back-to-back 15-minute slots.
But we're going to kick it off. Please welcome to the stage, Daniel Lee.
I'm back, guys.
Welcome back.
Hi. My name is Daniel. I am part of the team that supports cloud functions for Firebase. And today, I'm super excited to talk to you about observability in cloud functions for Firebase. This topic is near and dear to my heart because I was part of the site reliability engineering team when I first joined Google. And you may have seen or read this book, but site reliability engineering team is obsessed with operating the production software as efficiently, as reliably as possible. And while in Firebase, we love talking about how easy it is to build your service, we often don't talk that much about how do you operate this thing. So, and I think GCP, which the platform that Cloud Functions for Firebase is built on top of, offers amazing tools for operating your software. So I want to do that, and I think the best way to do this is with a story. So I want you to meet Suna. She is a developer at an e-commerce company, and she is a Firebase enthusiast just like us. She walks into the office one day, and the PM has a message for her. Hey, our customers love discounts. Can we have a feature where we calculate the total price with the discounts applied? And like a good engineer, Suna says, you got it. She thinks Cloud Functions for Firebase is a perfect fit for this feature because, one, it offers zero maintenance. It scales automatically up and down. She doesn't have to think about the infrastructure too much. It's private and secure, which is important in this case because discount information is sensitive. We don't want any customers to just access and read the discount information. You need a secure environment. Cloud Functions for Firebase offers that. Finally, she knows she'll be productive with the SDK, the CLI, and the emulator that all work seamlessly together. So she writes her function in the V2 that we just talked about earlier today. And you don't have to read the whole thing. Just let's focus on 2 business logics. One is calculating the total price. So you get a list of product IDs that you want to calculate the total for. We have the products collection with documents that specify the price of the product. So we're going to generate document references, grab all the documents at once, and then calculate the total by iterating through the documents that we fetched. That's one. The important piece and the interesting piece is the discount calculation. Imagine having a collection of discounts, and each discount describes the discounted amount and the product that it applies to. So for each product that she has, she's going to look up the discounts collection, find the discounts that match this product, add it all up, and do that again for all the products that she has. So she wrote the function. She has run the emulator to test her logic. She deploys it to her QA project. She even does a production launch and does a QA there. She's happy. Everything's working great. A launch. High fives. She's getting kudos. She's feeling great. All right, so here's a twist. Next day, she walks in, PM messages her, hey, I'm getting this call from our big customer. They say their checkout process is taking a long time. Can you take a look? I had this feeling, a lot of people reporting bugs, issues, and I have this 5 stages of production issue. First, you're in denial. It's like, code is perfect. What are you talking about? Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're on a 3G network. And then you get a little angry. It's like, who is this silly customer anyway? Like, do I even have to care about this customer? You start bargaining. It's like, hey, like 10 seconds, not too long, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, everything's cool. You get a little depressed, like, oh, I'm the worst coder in the world. I'm the worst software engineer in the world. Finally, you get to acceptance. You figure out that there could be a problem, and you're going to go search for the problem. So where do we start? I think a good place to start is with the dashboard. So there is a thing called 4 golden signals that the SRE folks like to talk about, and these are the request latency, the utilization of CPU and memory, request count, and the errors. And she notices something on the request latency. The 99th percentile is indeed super slow. It's taking over 7 seconds to respond. And when you're using Cloud Functions for Firebase, you get all this for free because you're running on Google Cloud Platform. So with these dashboards, she has confirmed the issue. Yeah, the customer is not kidding. Like, there is an issue with our backend, but you don't have any incriminating evidences yet. Now you start to think, like, you built this code, so maybe you can think through and find the bug that you, by doing that. So you think about your source code, maybe there's a bug somewhere. You also think about the infrastructure where your code is deployed, right? Like, did everything work perfectly in development? Maybe like when we applied or deployed it to Google Cloud Functions, maybe this is the cold start that people are talking about. Maybe Firestore is having a bad day. So you're generating hypotheses about like what is going on, like what is the problem. Finally, like I think I like to jump back into logs. I don't know if people have done this. I do this all the time where like we write logs to understand the code that we write, right? Like how is it actually running when it's running on the CPU? But the problem is that Suna didn't write any logs. She didn't expect any logs. Like logs are intentional. They're explicit. Like you're leaving breadcrumbs for yourself. In this case, Suna didn't leave any because she thought everything was good. So let's recap. We looked at dashboard. We confirmed the issue. We thought about our code. We thought about the infrastructure that it's deployed on. We have a hunch. We have hypothesis. And as for logs, it wasn't very helpful. And I would say like the cloud function that Suna deployed is still a black box. Like even though she wrote the code, the business logic, she's relying on like libraries that she didn't write. She's relying on infrastructure that she doesn't know the full detail of. Only like a couple of Googlers probably know that. It's still a black box. And this is where concept of observability comes in. And it's such a new hot topic, I couldn't find an Oxford dictionary definition for it. But there was a book that was published earlier this year called Observability Engineering. And they had a great definition that I want to share with you. Observability of a software system is a measure of how well you can understand and explain your system, no matter how novel or bizarre. And I want us to focus on the fact that observability is not like a set of technology or checkboxes. It's a relationship between you as the operator and the software that is running in production. So if it's not making sense to you, then it's not observable. So Suna learns about this topic. I want to make my service observable. How do we do that? Well, I think the easiest place to get started is just write some more logs, right? Like we talked about how like you rewrite logs to understand how it's running in the software system. So she's going to use the handy-dandy console log that I hope people are familiar with. And she's going to time how long it takes to fetch these Firestore documents. Maybe that's where the problem is. So you have this log, but it's a lot of logs. So she's getting a lot of requests. It's just a bunch of text, right? Like we're not really good at processing megabytes of text and getting insights from it. So how do we get some help here? Well, Suna figures out that she can write, you can import the logger that is included with Firebase Functions SDK. And instead of writing strings, she's going to write objects, these JavaScript objects. When you do that, this technique is called structured logging. So not only is JavaScript object readable by humans, it's also readable by machine and understood by machines. So when you're using cloud logging, you can now make, so this is the logging payload that you'll get. You'll see that the JSON payload has the object of, we calculated, we have a message, and we have the time it took to calculate this price or discount. And cloud logging allows you to write complex queries where you can filter by, hey, I want only logs that is greater than or that took more than 500 milliseconds. This is going to help with the investigation that she's doing. And instead of having to write regular expressions or like awk to like parse the logs, you can leverage the machine to help you make investigations go more smoothly. And what's great about it is that you can even create custom metrics. So you write your queries, and there will be a little button that says Create Custom Metrics. When you do this, instead of having to integrate with cloud monitoring or Prometheus or what other monitoring tools that you're familiar with, you can just go ahead and easily dump this data, the structured data that you had, into Google Cloud Monitoring or Prometheus that also is offered by Google Cloud Platform. So when Suna did this, she found that she was able to graph the latency of how long it took to calculate the price, as well as how long it took to calculate the discount. She notices that, the tail end behavior of calculating discount is super slow. Price is doing pretty okay. This is probably where the problem lies. So at this point, Suna has honed in on a section of code that has the problem. So what do we do now? Do we go back and add more logs to get even more information about what's going on with our code? Maybe she's going to time exactly how long it took to make the Firebase query, or maybe it's in that for loop, so she's going to make logs after this. What I think Suna needs is a little cute dog with a camera. And I don't mean literally, but wouldn't it be nice if there was an autonomous thing that would go and take a snapshot of the system state whenever anything interesting happens. So whenever a request comes in, you take a snapshot, maybe the timing information of what's going on. Maybe when you're making a third-party API call, you take a snapshot of the state, basically like writing logs, except doing it automatically by this little cute dog. Well, we can't have cute dogs running around the server room, but what we can have is traces and spans. So traces and spans are another type of monitoring signal where each request has, as you follow each request, and whenever anything significant happens, you're sort of taking a start and the end and any metadata that is associated that you want to put into each span. So in our case, we get this beautiful visualization of, we got the request and then we started calculating the price, which issued a Firestore call, then we started calculating discount, which was another set of Firestore call, and you get a nice visibility into what's actually happening in your service. So how do we get started with traces? I would recommend OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is a vendor-neutral, open specification and an implementation of all kinds of monitoring signals like logs, monitoring, and also traces. So traces is what I want to focus on today. But it's built by industry-leading experts in the monitoring space and available in a lot of languages, including JavaScript, which is what we need. So let's take a brief look at how it happens. I'm going to import OpenTelemetry in my code. I'm going to start the SDK, and I'm going to configure it that works with Google Cloud Functions. So I'm going to include instrumentation. This is where the magic happens, where if you want these significant events that you want to automatically instrument, you can import by saying, hey, I want any HTTP request to be instrumented. I want any gRPC request to be instrumented. I want anything express that is interesting to be automatically generating spans. You can add more, you can add less. This is what I picked, or this is what Suna picked. We're also going to look at the trace exporters. So when your service is generating spans, you want that data to be available in some service for analysis. I'm picking Google Cloud, or Suna is picking Google Cloud Trace, but there are other providers like Honeycomb and Lightstep who can also help you ingest these spans that are being generated and give you the analysis tool to investigate the problem. So her service is now instrumented. It's generating spans. What does it look like in Google Cloud Trace? Well, actually, one more, sorry. So you want to make sure that this is a Google Cloud Functions v2 function where it will send you a term or a SIG-term signal whenever the container is shutting down. And this is important because when it shuts down, you want to make sure that all the spans that you have generated is exported to Google Cloud Trace in our case. So I want to make sure that I capture that. All right, so this is the good trace that I want to look at. She looked at some of the traces that are normal, like 99% of them are pretty fast. This is what's happening. Like she gets an HTTP request, she's making a Firestore call to calculate the price, calculate the discount. The whole thing took 50 milliseconds. Pretty good. What about the bad case? This one took more than 6 seconds. You're seeing a lot more spans. Let's take a look. We're making over 100 calls to Firestore and doing them in like a waterfall style. Oh no, it looks like when there are a lot of products that needs to be calculated, we're gonna make a sequential calls to Firestore and make more than 100 calls. That's why it's being slow. But once you know the issue, it's easy to fix it, right? So this is the code that we had originally. We're going to apply 2 tricks. First, we're going to use this operator in Firestore called array contains any. So instead of looking for discounts applied to a single product where we can have up to 10 products that are, we can look up all the discount that applies to 10 products at the same time. So instead of making 100 calls, we can only make 10 calls. Nice. Another thing that I think we should do is to, instead of having this waterfall sequential calls, why don't we just issue all the Firestore calls at the same time and have them come back? So I'm going to do them concurrently by doing an async map over it and then doing a promise all to wait for all the responses to come back. She has deployed this code. She's looking for traces again. And what do we see? Exactly what we wanted, right? The request latency has reduced back to like 100 milliseconds. That's like 6 seconds to 100 milliseconds. Amazing stuff. We're only issuing 10 Firestore queries. Awesome. And we're doing them in parallel instead of doing it in sequence. That's why we got this amazing speed up. Suna is happy. PM is happy. Everyone's happy. Are you guys happy? All right, so let's quickly recap. We started from a black box. We added some logging to make it more observable. We added structured logging to leverage the machines. We should definitely use the machines for our benefit. Using cloud logging, understand structured logs, we can make custom metrics. Finally, we use OpenTelemetry to generate traces, which actually gave us the clues that we needed to debug our production issue. So that was like a really short snippet. It was super hard to follow. Check out the full example that we have on the functions sample repo on GitHub. Go to like 2nd gen and it has a really explicit title called Instrumenting with OpenTelemetry. I committed it yesterday, so you should be able to see it there. And if you want to talk to me about this and how you deal with your production issues, let me know. I'll be hanging out in the Firebase lounge right after this. So thank you, everyone.
Nice work. Yeah, I need to grab that. Thanks. All right. Hey, everybody. Hey, I'm Mark Duckworth. I'm an engineer on the Firestore SDK team. And I'm actually relatively new to the team and the product. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about getting started is learning about the customers, how you use Firestore, and the challenges you face. And one of the challenges that I've seen is understanding the Firestore SDK cache and how it can be used to your benefit. So that's what I'm here to talk about, using the cache and using it to build more efficient applications. So just take a step back. If you're not familiar with Firestore, well, Firestore is Firebase's NoSQL document database. And with a NoSQL document database, you can build lots of different types of applications, but it's common to build read-heavy applications. Think, for example, maybe an e-commerce app with a product catalog with thousands of items being read thousands of times per day by different users, right? And that product catalog doesn't get updated as often as it's read. So, well, there's something else that I've seen as a common consideration when using Firestore, and that's how much it costs. And I don't think that's common. I don't think that's unique to Firestore. I think it's common across all software. But it's important here in this context today, because with Firestore, you're billed by the number of reads and writes. And so if you're building a read-heavy application, then you want to be mindful of the number of reads against the server, right? So to explore these ideas, I built an e-commerce app called Firesale. Let's check it out. All right, you can see Firesale here on my laptop and my mobile phone, and you can browse a catalog of pins, stickers, and patches. Browse it on the laptop or the phone, and I'm going to log in on both devices so I share the same shopping cart. And when I add items to my shopping cart, you'll see that those items are synchronized across the Firestore server. Right? So let me talk about how I built Firesale. Right? I have my application running on both devices. It's using the Firebase SDK and two different Firebase services, Firebase Authentication and Cloud Firestore. Now I want to point out that I built just one application, a responsive web app, but I could have built a native iOS or a native Android app using the Firebase Android or iOS SDKs and gotten all the same functionality you're going to see today. Let's dig in a little bit into how I'm using Firestore. Well, I use an API called getDocs, which I use to query my product catalog from the Firestore backend. I use a second API called add docs when I want to add an item to my shopping cart. My shopping cart is represented by a collection in Firestore, and I add an item or add a document to that shopping cart. And third, I use onSnapshot to set up a listener to my shopping cart. So when a new item is added to the shopping cart, my application is notified and I can update the UI with the new item in the shopping cart. So with those three basic APIs and some helpers, I built a pretty basic e-commerce app. But I want to mention that it also works offline. So how does it work offline? Well, actually, let's check out offline functionality. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my application offline on my laptop and add a couple of items to my cart. When I add them, you can see the items get added to the cart on the laptop, but they don't show up in the cart on the phone until I bring my laptop back online. So how does this work? Well, Git docs, add doc, and onSnapshot all work seamlessly offline thanks to the Firestore SDK cache. Now the cache keeps copies of documents that have been queried from the Firestore backend so they can be queried again when offline. And it also keeps mutations, changes to documents, and collections that were made while offline that can be sent to the server when the application comes back online. So the only other thing I've done with my application is enabled persistence using enable IndexedDB persistence. And that's just to get the offline behavior that I want. So let me talk about enabling persistence a little bit. With persistence, it causes the data to stay in the cache so it can be queried offline. And it's not the only way to have your data stay in the cache for offline querying, but it was the easiest way for my application. And also, persistence ensures that the data is in the cache even if your application restarts, which can be really critical in certain scenarios. And so I also want to point out that persistence is enabled by default in Android and iOS SDKs, but it's disabled by default on the web SDK. So you need to enable it, or I did in my application. All right, so I'm pretty excited about what I built with Firebase. And I'm telling my brother how powerful it is, and he says, well, if it's so powerful, then does it cost a lot? And I decided I need to come up with a cost model. So I think about what success might look like for my app. I say maybe I have 10,000 monthly users, viewing 25 items per catalog page, loading 3 pages from my catalog, and maybe refreshing those pages 5 times. And that comes out to a total of 3,750,000 document reads. And I'm a little concerned until I plug that amount of reads into the Firebase pricing calculator and see that that's only going to be $1.38 a month. But as an engineer, I'm kind of thinking about the future where maybe I achieve global scale. Maybe I have 10 million monthly users and a product catalog that's 10 times that size, where I could see bills that are in excess of 20,000 a month. So I still want to see if I can reduce the number of billed document reads in my application. So I have an insight, which is basically that my product catalog doesn't update very often. So I decide if I update my application to pull the product catalog from the Firestore server only once a day, and then any other time I need to query the product catalog, I can query it from the local cache. I can reduce my billed reads. So this updates my application. So now I'm only using Git docs, which queries the server once a day for the product catalog, and the product catalog is stored in cache. And then any other time I need to query the product catalog, it will be queried using Git docs from cache and not hit the server. All right, so this updates my billing read estimation, potentially reducing those 5 page refreshes down to 1, or saving me up to 3 million document reads. But I still have a problem, which is each of my 10,000 users are querying the full product catalog, and it's the same product catalog for each of those users. So I want to see if I can solve this problem. And I have another insight, which is, well, I think that I can query the product catalog only one time and share those results across all users. And in fact, I can do this with a built-in feature called bundles. So what are Firestore bundles? Well, Firestore bundles are the packaged results of queries from Firestore. And typically you use this with common queries, but it allows an application to load your query results from a bundle quickly without querying the back end. And in this case, it's also helping me save on build reads. So how did I create a bundle for my product catalog? Well, in this case, I need to use a Firebase server or admin SDK to run that same query for my product catalog and get all the documents. And then I can run the documents through the bundling API to create this bundle, that icon you see on the left. And then with my bundle, I can distribute it to 1 application, or 30 instances of my application, or 1,000 instances of my application, and I've only queried the Firebase server 1 time. So this changes my application a little bit. It changes how data gets from the Firestore backend down to the SDK in my application. So I have a process that runs once a day to update that generated bundle file for my product catalog and puts that in cloud storage. And then when an application starts, or once a day, it fetches that bundle from cloud storage and then loads the bundle into the Firestore SDK cache using load bundle. And so from there, I can query that product catalog out of the cache. So once again, this updates my build read estimation, reducing those 10,000 monthly reads down to 30 for a total of 2,250 build reads for a savings of over 99%. Now I want to point out, if you are serving a bundle out of cloud storage, then you'll still have to pay for egress on that bundle from cloud storage. Okay, so I'm pretty excited about that. However, I found another issue, a blog from 2021 that says, basically, if you overload your SDK cache, it can slow down querying from the cache and potentially slow down your application. So I want to investigate this and see if I can fix that. And it turns out there's a relatively new feature called client-side indexing, which can be used to speed up queries against cache documents. Now, I'd like to point out that client-side indexing is in preview or public beta. So you can use it, but it may change. Okay, and so what is client-side indexing? Well, client-side indexing simply brings indexing to the SDK. Indexing is always performed on all documents, on all fields on the server, and it's new to the SDK. And if you're not familiar with indexing, well, it's just a mechanism the database has used to perform very efficient queries. Take, for example, this table on the right that represents an index on the category, on the field category. If I get a query like where category equals pens, I can use this index to very quickly find all the documents where category equals pens. All right, so like I said, indexing is automatically performed on the server, but in the SDK, you have to configure it. And you configure it using set index configuration. And you pass in a configuration telling the SDK which fields to index. So after I've set that up, when I want to query from cache using something like get docs from cache, it's now going to query very efficiently. All right, so in summary, FireSale, I built an e-commerce app with offline support thanks to the SDK cache. And I've saved on read costs by querying from the cache and using bundles. And I've sped up querying from the cache using client-side indexing. Cool, so if you want to learn more about these features, check out our online documentation, where I'll be out at the lounge right after this. And thanks for coming. And thanks to all my team and everybody who helped build this stuff.
Hey everyone, my name is Shin. I'm a software engineer working on Firebase Remote Config. To start off, who here likes coffee? Awesome. Did anyone check out that fancy barista app out there by the coffee bar? Yeah? Now, did you all know what you wanted to order before you got there? Well, I didn't. I love coffee, but it was my first time using the app, and I was quite pleasantly surprised and a little blown away by the sheer number of different drinks and customizations it has. I was staring and scrolling through the screen for the longest time, trying to figure out what I wanted and how I wanted it. I'm pretty sure there are people behind me in line that are thinking to themselves, like, can you hurry up and stop holding the line? I kept wishing that a virtual barista of some sort would magically just pop up and automatically recommend something to me. And wouldn't it be great if, as I order more and more drinks in the future, the recommendations could just improve, giving me a better experience each time? Now, imagine you're developing an app to provide that sort of experience. Just like how everyone has different tastes when it comes to their coffee, your users may also have different preferences and expectations when using your app. They want their app experience to be better than the last time they're on it. And there are so many things that could reduce the quality of that experience. A misplaced ad, for example. It could annoy a user into just closing your app in the middle of a big order, and they may not come back. And that's not so great. But unlike a real-life barista, your app can't simply just ask your users what kind of experience they would like. A barista may recommend something based on subtle hints, like customer's mood, their order history, and that often means using these complex psychological inferences that the brain is capable of generating. But how do you perform these kind of complex, multifaceted analysis in an app, though? Well, with machine learning, of course. Using the power of machine learning, remote config personalization gives you the ability to create several user experience alternatives and automatically provide the best one to each of your users based on a metric goal that you care about, like maximizing user engagement or revenue. And best of all, you don't have to be a machine learning expert to do this. You don't have to worry about setting up complicated pipelines or models because remote config personalization does it all for you. Now, before diving into personalization, let me quickly tell you a bit about what remote config is. You can think of remote config as a key value store with powerful conditions to create targeted user experiences. So, for example, a key can have several values based on a language, a country, an analytics audience, or more. Now, one of these special values can also be a machine learning-driven personalization. As you use remote config in your app, the personalization algorithm will automatically select the best value for each of your users to maximize their objective. So you can think of this as performing an automated, individualized, continuously improving A/B test. And as time goes by, user behaviors might change. And that's okay, because the personalization algorithm will continue to learn, adapt, and adjust, always trying to optimize for your objective at any given time for a particular user. And because we take care of everything for you, all you have to focus on is just building the features your users love. Remote config personalization is built on Google Analytics. And for those of you who haven't used analytics before, the two main features of analytics are the ability to measure predefined and custom events in your app and report specific event parameter values for important metrics surrounding those events as they occur. So, for example, an e-commerce purchase event or e-commerce purchase amounts. Remote config personalization gives you the ability to use any analytics event as an optimization objective. So let's say, for example, you have an event relating to, ad revenue, and that it could have a numerical value attached to it. Let's say the amount you earned for a click or impression. Not only can you optimize for how often those ads were clicked or shown, but also how much total revenue they brought in. This way, you can use personalization to maximize the user lifetime value that comes from ad. And this is pretty cool. Or at least I think it's pretty cool. So let's walk through an example on how to set that up. So here I have a mock of my amazing test app, the new Grind Coffee. And as you can see, I currently have a banner ad that's displaying near the top of my screen. This is currently set by default value and my remote config parameter. So let's use personalization to, personalize that banner allocation for each of my users to maximize my objective. I think for our little experiment here, The 4 alternative options I want to explore is top, bottom, inline, and bottom fixed. All right, so let's jump into my Firebase dashboard to set this up. Great, so I start in my Firebase dashboard. And I can see the various remote config parameters I have controlling different app experiences in my app. Let's click and zoom into one of them. App placement, which you probably have guessed, it controls the placement location of that banner ad in my app. As you can see, it's currently set to a default value of top for all my users. I think each user responds to ads differently. That's what makes ad revenue so hard to optimize for. I want to put my ad at the right location for each of my users to maximize my objective. But I don't really know where that location is. I don't want it to be too disruptive for the user that they'll get annoyed and just leave my app before even placing an order. But at the same time, not so subtle that they'll completely ignore and miss the ad, which is pretty common for banner ads. So let's use personalization in remote config to figure out the best app placement location for each user. So to personalize a parameter, I click on Add New and click on Personalization. This will bring up the personalization flow. The top section that you see here is where you can define several alternative values that your users can have. So in our case here, that would be the different placement locations for my ad that I can have my users experience. So as mentioned before, let's explore the 4 options here, which is top, bottom, inline, and bottom fixed. Cool. Next up, I need to select my objective. Since I want to maximize for my total ad revenue, I'm going to use personalization to maximize the total parameter value of a custom analytics event I have set up. So I have a custom event set up called ad revenue. I know it's not very original, but attached to that is a flow type parameter called value. Now, in my app, I'm logging this event. I'm forwarding the impression level ad mob revenue that I'm getting from AdMob into this parameter. And I can verify that everything is working as expected by heading into my analytics event dashboard. And select my event and verify that my event is showing up here with the right parameter and values populated. All right, everything looks pretty good. So let's go back to my setup. Great, I can see that my custom ad revenue event is showing up here. So let's select that. Next, since I want to optimize for the sum of my total paid impression, I need to toggle sum there. And then I enter the name of the event parameter that I'm forwarding my AdMob data to. So that will be value. I'm also interested to see what happens with user engagement, but I don't want to be driving the optimization algorithm. So let's select that as an additional metric. I'm almost done. Next, I need to select a target segment. Let's target all my USA users for now and see how that works before potentially expanding it to everyone. Give it a name and a description, and pretty much done. Click Save and Publish in order to get this personalization running. Great. As you can see, I'm now waiting for personalization to work its magic. This can take some time, so let's jump into some tips and tricks on how we can set up an effective personalization. As magical as machine learning is, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build and improve the models. While you should be able to see some results in a day or two, we recommend just leaving it run indefinitely. That way, personalization can continue to learn, ensuring that your app stays in sync with your users should their preferences change over time. Some of the most effective personalizations that we have seen are the ones that have been running for at least a week, usually much longer. When picking a targeting condition, choose a large enough target segment that will generate plenty of result data, ideally with as many users as possible. When picking alternative values, pick ones that produce a large difference in outcome. The system will learn faster and create more value when the alternatives are less similar to each other. And finally, good machine learning models thrive on lots of data. So when picking an optimization objective, choose an event that fires pretty frequently. Cool. And as shown before, you can use the analytics event dashboard to verify that the event you're trying to optimize for is being fired. If you're not getting any data in your personalization after a while, this is most likely the issue. If you're using custom parameter value maximization, make sure that the event and parameter names match exactly with what you see on your events dashboard, and that it has a numerical value attached to it. You can also search for personalization assignment events. These events are automatically fired whenever a user gets a value. It notes the personalization ID, the group that the user is in, whether it's baseline or personalized, the alternative index and value that the user got, and the remote config parameter name that's associated with this personalization. So what can you do without this data? Well, you can export it to BigQuery and use this event to identify users in each group of interest and slice your analytics data accordingly. Cool. Now, it's been a while, so let's go back to our personalization to see how it's doing. After about a week or two, the personalization should be working pretty effectively. So to see the results, I just need to click on the personalization icon, which is the sparkly person icon, and my remote config parameter, and wow, I am pretty impressed that my personalization is outperforming my baseline by 8%. This is pretty magical. So let's dive into the results a little more. So the top section that you see here, it shows the high-level information about my personalization, including when the personalization was started, the objective I'm trying to achieve, my targeting condition, and the various alternative values that my users can have. You can also see how many users are exposed to my personalization on the top left. The bottom section shows my performance. The baseline group, which is the gray bar chart here, is a group of random users that will receive a persistent, non-personalized value. It gives me a way to understand and compare what I'm gaining from using personalization. Now, the baseline is only 20% of my total users, so it's way smaller than a personalized group. So it's scaled up here to be comparable. Now, to see my performance over time, I just need to head to my top right and click on the daily toggle. And as you can see, my performance started out as not super great for the first few days, but it got better over time. And this makes sense because the personalization algorithm will continue to learn, making smarter and better decisions the longer it runs. Now, to toggle between my overall objective and the secondary metrics I'm interested in, I just need to click on the top. And here, I can see that my user engagement time is not too impacted by my app placement. And that's exactly what I want here. Personalization is exceptionally powerful when different users benefit from different experiences. For example, setting a dynamic game difficulty level or figuring out the right discount percentages for the promotions that you're running. So go ahead and give personalization a try to give the best version of your app to each of your users. If you're already using remote config today, you can start creating personalizations in your dashboard. If not, here's some videos and documentations to find out more about what remote config and personalization can offer, including how it's different from our A/B testing products. Cool, that's all for now. And if you have any questions, you can find me in the Ask Firebase Lounge area after this, probably with a coffee in my hand. Thank you.
Hey, nice job, got it. A little sprinkle. Should be okay. We can do power though. Whoops. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Thompson. I'm a software engineer on the Firebase team. Day to day, I work on the emulator suite, and so I'm excited to be here today to tell you all about why I think the emulator suite is the fastest, safest, no-cost way to develop on Firebase. So today we announced the emulator suite was graduating from beta to general availability. What does that mean exactly? Well, we have Firestore, real-time database, storage, hosting, and authentication, in addition to the emulator suite UI that have graduated to GA today. And there's 3 additional emulators that are going to stay in beta for now. They are the functions, Cloud Pub Sub, and extensions emulators. This effort started in 2018, so it's been a long road to get here, and I'm excited to finally be GA. So before we go to the agenda, as a show of hands, how many people here have used the emulator suite before? Pretty good amount. How many have never used the emulator suite before? Okay. And how many are just waiting patiently for lunch? Good stuff. So before we go any further, a quick agenda. So we're going to talk about what is the emulator suite today? What is it good for? We're going to take a look at running a project locally. We'll take a look at the emulator suite UI. And finally, we'll test making and testing some changes live today. So first up, what is the emulator suite? The emulator suite is a set of binaries that run locally on your machine that create a near hermetic environment and enable things like local development, prototyping, unit testing, and even continuous integration. So today I'm going to demo some of the features that make the emulator suite fast and secure. If we could switch to the demo, please. I can just hit the mirror button there. So today I'm going to use the completed Code Lab application that we developed as part of our tutorial. I recommend everyone check out the Code Lab. It takes under an hour and covers 3 out of the 5 emulators that are going GA today. Prerequisites for this demo, real quick. I have Node Package Manager installed. I have the Firebase command line interface installed, and I've logged in under my account. And finally, we'll be using Git to pull down the changes, or the app. So first up, I'm going to do a git clone. .com Firebase. This is going to pull down a completed app for us to use here today. Okay, and one additional step, I'm going to navigate to my functions directory. And install our npm dependencies. Now I think the Wi-Fi is running at about 2 megabits per second here, so this might take a second. While this is chugging along, the next step, rather than dive right into the code, we're just going to execute the application and take a look at what we have. Perfect. So I'm going to use the Firebase emulator. Here, let's do it clear. Firebase emulators start, and I'm going to pass it my project ID flag. And I'm going to import from our seed directory. This is going to give us some seed data that gets us rolling. While this is starting up, I want to point out the special project ID that I used here today with the demo prefix. In the Firebase console, it's not possible to create a project with the demo prefix. And so it tells the emulator suite that we want to work completely offline. And it's going to sub in some configs locally rather than fetch them from the Firebase console using my logged in credentials. And we see that the app is now running. We'll take a look at it here on localhost 5000. So everything you see here is running locally on this laptop. And the initial state is populated from that seed directory. This is an example of a typical e-commerce app. So I can log in the top right. I can add some items to my cart. And we can see in the top right, the cart is updated with the number of items and the new total. So the magic of the cart happens, there's a calculate cart cloud function that's running locally that's triggered whenever we add items to the cart. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later. The other thing I want to showcase today is the emulator suite UI. You can see at the top we have, we can see at the top we have a series of emulators. Some of them are running right now, some of them are not. Let's take a look at the authentication emulator tab. You can see here, this is the record that I created when I performed the anonymous login a second ago. If we take a look at our Firestore, these are the items that we imported from the C directory, and the items have a description, image URL, name, price. And this is the cart that I created when I added some items to my cart. It's got a number of items, owner ID, total price. The last tab I want to show you today is our logs tab, and this contains the logs for all the running emulators. And this is the first place we're going to look when debugging our app. So diving into the code, let me load this up. And there's two files that we care about today. First being in the public directory, index.html, and second being index.js from the functions directory. So taking a look at index.html, this is your typical, exactly what you'd expect. This is the HTML landing page for our app. And I'll point out here that the body is mostly empty because we're populating this with JavaScript as we read from Firestore. On the index.js side, we have our calculate cart function. And this is responsible for listening to changes to our cart in Firestore and updating it so we can see it in the app. So to prove that this is a live demo, I'm going to make a quick change here. I'm going to save this, and this is automatically going to be picked up by our running emulator suite. And let's go here, do a refresh. Okay, nothing happened. I think what might be happening here is the emulators are a little bit shy today, so we could give them a quick round of applause, get them hyped up. There we go, perfect, there's our change. And so I got this change, I loaded this change by refreshing the site and not reloading our emulator suite, which is still running. And you can see that the initial state with the card in the top right is still preserved. So I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, HTML hot reload, that's great. But I came a long way to New York to be here today, so you're going to have to do a little bit better than that. I hear you. Let's take a look at our index.js. So again, this calculate cart is responsible for listening to writes to our cart, or the items in our cart in Firestore. And let's say I want to make a change here. I'm going to add a last updated timestamp to our cart and items so that I know for debugging purposes the last time they were updated. So I'll declare a constant last updated. And using the change object above, I'm going to get the reference for the cart item. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to throw it in here. This is our cart ref. Perfect. So we take a look at our emulator suite UI. We can see at the bottom of the logs that this functions change is hot reloaded. It's ready to go on our functions emulator. And so let's add some items to our cart. If I scroll up here, we'll see that the cart is updated. We have 4 items now, 5196. Everything's looking good. And if we take a look at our cart here, we can see that the last updated timestamp is here, just like we expected. But something unexpected is happening here. What we accidentally introduced was a function loop. And so because the function is listening to changes to Firestore, when it writes the last updated timestamp itself, it triggers the function. And this is a not uncommon thing to encounter when using Cloud Functions. And so I will point out there too that there's some protections against this that I gingerly stepped over in order to make this work. So the typical solution here is we wanted to detect if this is not the first time that we're in this function. So we can do that because our app can only add items to the cart. It can't update or delete them. We can simply check if the item existed before. So if the item existed before, this must be at least the second time that we're through the loop. I'm going to save this. Automatically gets picked up. And now our last updated is stable. So back to the slides, please. So just to linger on this point a little bit longer, let's say we had 1 QPS of users who are adding items to their cart. That means we're introducing a new function loop roughly once per second, and let's say that function loop executes once a second. So after about 1 hour of time, we're burning about $23 per hour in compute. And after a whole day, we have about $560 per hour in compute. But we saved all of this by running our functions locally and testing locally and vetting them before going to production. So to recap, what do we cover today? We covered what is the emulator suite and what is it good for. We downloaded and ran an existing application within 60 seconds. I think that's fair. And we updated our function, introduced a bug, and caught the bug and fixed it. I invite everybody to check out the emulator code lab at the URL here, firebase.google.com/codelab/Firebase emulator. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your Firebase Summit, and I'll invite Puff and Rachel back to the stage.
You get to go first, and then I get to overtake you.
I don't need it.
Please welcome back Rachel and
I said I have many favorites. This was one of my favorite talks. How often have you read about people making a mistake in their code and ending up with an endless loop, right? And ending up with a bill, and Chris just stands there, right? Like, yeah, so it's going into an endless, and nothing happens because Chris was using the emulator suite. Use the emulator suite.
Definitely.
Rachel.
4 talks.
We had 4 talks
So Chris
about
was the
all
last
kinds
one.
of topics. Are we done for today then?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I guess we're doing more, but earlier I asked you what your favorite launch was.
Yeah.
What's your favorite lunch?
Well, I gotta say, my stomach is literally growling. Like, if you could have my microphone here, you'd hear it. And so it's the one that I'm gonna have, like, right now.
So we're heading into a lunch break. We have much more content after the lunch break. We have, what do we have when we get back here?
So we have more Ignite talks, so 4 more Ignite talks. They're about better alerting. There's better engagement with messaging, like cloud messaging. We have Swift UI, so if you're iOS people out there. And then also securing data access. So if that's interesting to you, come back here for Ignite talks, 4 in a row right after lunch.
That applies to everyone at home too. Yes. I keep misplacing where you are. You'll get to grab your own food, whatever time of day it is for you, though. We expect to see you back here, though, in an hour and a half for those talks. Everyone here, you have options, though. Food, of course, there's options, but also after the lunch break, we have workshops. We have 2 more workshops. One of them is called Build, Release, Monitor a Flutter chat app with Firebase, excuse me. And the other one is Building Production-Ready Android apps with Firebase and Jetpack Compose. So you get to choose Flutter or Android. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
So see you all back here.
Go grab some grub. 2 p.m., back wherever you want to be, whether here, expert-led class, or out in the wild. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hello, hello.
How was lunch? Let's do the same thing we did at the start, where we, like, with claps, like, indicate how good it was, and we keep going. So on 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Yay! I should not do that when I'm on a microphone.
You always have to watch that, because if you clap too close to here, it's like, whoa, deafening.
Oh, my noise voice, though. Like, Rachel, what are we doing now?
Oh, well, we have some more pictures. Because our virtual audience out there, you all don't start seeing what we're seeing. And so we wanted to make sure everyone out there was seeing what we were all seeing, like around here.
So we took some pictures, and we'd like to have a look at, oh, look at them pictures. Hey, I know these people. You're still here. You moved seats, did you not?
I thought there was assigned seats when we, no?
That would be awesome, assigned seating. I like that. Like, I love this. So yeah, we love having you here. This was during the keynote. It was early in the keynote because it got more crowded later. But thank you all for being here in person, and thank you everyone online also for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Apparently, if I look at another camera, they will switch to that one. I was promised things that are not happening today. All good. Okay. So that's awesome. Can we go to the next picture? Right. Who played any demos?
Does anyone know where they are? So they're down this hallway right here, and they're all here. And so go check them out, like at the next break, or if you're not going to sit through all, or you're not going to go through all the Ignite talks, you can play some of the demos. And you all out in like virtual land, you can play those too. So make sure you check out the website and you can play those as well. But yeah, that's our. There's like 3 or 4 demos out there.
Yeah, this is the pinball, because I'm like a pinball addict on physical machines, but it turns out that if you theme something with Sparky and Dash, I will play it, yes. Next picture, please. We love seeing so many developers. Like, it's like my highlight. Yeah, Rachel.
I really miss people in person. Like, it's just, I love talking to you all and hearing all your stories. And like, you just imagine what, I don't know if these people were all like just checking their like emails or whatever, but it was just like everyone's getting together finally. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that. Let's do the next picture, because we probably have more people, yes. Because there's a lot of people here, it turns out. Remember, everyone in the yellow shirt is either a Firebase team member or event staff. If they look at you and when you're asking about Firestore and like, what are you onto, then they're probably event staff and like they can tell you where things are. If you're asking about the food and they look at you, what do you mean? Then they're probably Firebasers. And Ask Firebase Lounge is the bar that you see there. We called it lounge, but it's actually a bar. So ask your questions there. And again, online, if you have any questions, ask them in the comments. Or, you could post them on Stack Overflow, because apparently I might have some downtime tonight, so I might get to them. OK. I think, well, right, we had one more picture of food. Thank you, people in the back. What did you have for lunch?
Oh, I had one of those, definitely. One of these tacos, I definitely chowed down on these tacos.
Yeah, I went one station over, but also a great Mexican food indeed. So that was soft tacos. This is crunchy tacos. Like, I loved the food.
I had one of both, just because, it was there.
So I'm ready for more content. So what do we have going on?
Well, you all are here in this room, so you're here for our Ignite Talks, 4 more in a row. People out there in our virtual land, like you also can be watching these 4 in a row. And they're Ignite Talks. They're like 15 minutes, kind of get you kind of thinking about something cool that Firebase can help you with. So.
Do you know the topics?
Yeah, I do it. Actually, better alerts. There's messaging, like for better user engagement. For all of you iOS people out there, Swift UI. And then we also have securing data access. So if you're interested in any of those topics, stay here and check them out.
Keep in mind, these talks go on like on the 15-minute mark. This one is starting a bit late because we have words too. So if we have a break in between, just be back here for the next one. And without further ado, please welcome to the stage Mariah Hart and Adam Duke.
Almost.
Kill it.
Hi everyone, I'm Mariah. Thanks for joining. And today Adam and I will be talking about how and when to set up advanced alerting using cloud functions for Crashlytics, performance monitoring, and app distribution. Keeping your users happy is critical to your app's success. And app quality plays a major role in that happy meter. Knowing your app's stability and performance from the user's perspective is critical, especially when your users are running your app on a complex ecosystem of devices, form factors, and OS versions. The key to keeping your users happy from an app quality perspective is fixing issues early and fast. Now, this may come as a surprise to some of you, but humans are impatient. Instead of waiting for something to load that may be taking longer than usual, users often jump to an alternative option that serves a similar purpose. Development teams are moving fast and have limited time, so it's not always practical to watch Crashlytics and performance monitoring dashboards to catch every issue as soon as it happens. So how do we fix issues in our app before that human impatience steps in? With real-time alerts. Let's take a deep dive into a few advanced alerting use cases so that you can learn about how to send real-time alerts to virtually any platform with any configuration you'd like outside of Firebase.
Hey, y'all. I'm Adam, a software engineer working on Crashlytics, and I'd like to start off with a story. Next slide. Imagine we work on an e-commerce app. the team knows that the winter holiday season is coming. It's the best time of year for sales, and any hiccups have the potential to cause impact to the company's reputation and finances. So we work hard, get all our features complete, submit our app to the store, and it goes live. After a few weeks, the holiday break is in full swing. Alex, it's right there in the center, our PM, decides to open the Crashlytics dashboard and check on the stability of the latest release. He discovers that crashes aren't actually appearing in the Crashlytics dashboard because a critical debug symbol file for the app wasn't uploaded. At this point, customers are having a terrible experience, and most of the team is off for the remainder of the year. It's a scramble to get the DSIM file uploaded, and a backlog of crashes starts showing up on the Crashlytics dashboard. The on-call engineer unfortunately ends up spending their holiday triaging bugs while the rest of the team is off enjoying their holiday break. What if there was a simple way to get notified of the missing DSIM file the very first time a crash happens? I'd like to show y'all a quick demo of a brand new missing DSIM alert connected to a Discord channel via a Firebase Cloud function. First, let's take a quick look at the code. So at the top, we have our imports from the Firebase Functions SDK. And we're going to import a few simple types that are going to wrap the concepts that we're going to deal with. The last thing that we need to import is the node fetch package, because we're going to end up making an HTTP request. The entry point to our function is on lines 8 to 23, and its responsibility is to basically call another function to build a post body and then actually make the post request. We build the post body with the build missing symbols post function. Its responsibility is to extract data from the incoming payload and then format it into a JSON blob that we're going to post to the Discord webhook API. The last piece that we need is to build a deep link back into the Crashlytics dashboard so that we can upload our DSIM file when we get the alert. Right here, we're maintaining a map from our app ID to some other relevant details that we need to build the URL. So we take the incoming ID, do the lookup, get the details, format the URL, and return it. That's it. So we have a total of 73 lines of code, including comments. And let's see how it works. So how do we deploy our function? I'm sure y'all have been sitting here all day and seen something similar to this several times. So if I run the deploy, a couple things are going to happen. First, we're going to see TypeScript to JavaScript compilation and linting. Second, we're going to see that the necessary APIs are enabled for our project. And third, we're going to see the function actually get deployed. The first time you deploy your function, it can take 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes total. Fortunately, I've deployed this function and haven't changed it, so we have a step that skips that deployment for us. So everything's ready to go. Let's try it out. Here I have a Discord channel. Say our team uses Discord for communication. This is where we'd like to see the alert show up. And over here, I have my very fancy, complicated test app. If I crash the app and relaunch it, and hopefully the live demo fairies are going to help us out, we'll see the alert pop up in Discord. Clicking the link should take us directly to the Firebase dashboard where we can drag and drop upload our DSIM file. So we have some really cool tools that we can use to customize our alerting. We switch back to the slides. In addition, if we're willing to do a little more work than just the Firebase deploy CLI, we can even choose one of the other languages that is supported by Google Cloud Functions, including .NET, Java, Go, PHP, Python, and Ruby. Crashlytics, performance monitoring, and app distribution are already generating a bunch of the alerts waiting to be handled by your function, like a new tester device from app distribution, crossing a threshold for performance monitoring, new velocity alerts from Crashlytics, and more. I hope you have a chance to try out your own function today.
Let's look at another use case around using cloud functions for Firebase. Let's say we built a gaming app that helps people learn Spanish. We've been live for a while, and we are using our app distribution to share new releases with our remote QA team before we publish them to the stores. And things are running smoothly. Just as we're getting ready for a big update, new iOS devices get released. To keep up with the market, we need to test our app on using these devices as well. Thankfully, we're able to arrange getting these new devices into the hands of our testers. We're really tight on time for our big release, so no time can be lost. As our testers begin setting up their new devices, they quickly realize that they can't test the app anymore. The new devices haven't been registered for use with our test app, so the release won't work for them yet. The iOS testing process requires us to get the device IDs for each test device, which can be a bit painful. So how will we test our app properly on these new test devices, get all of the device IDs, and still meet our release date? Fortunately, with real-time alerting and app distribution, our app developers will be alerted of the device IDs immediately so that they can quickly repackage their app, go straight to testing, and de-risk the launch. We can notify our developers by email or by leveraging cloud functions for Firebase to integrate with Discord or Slack as examples, in the same manner we've seen for Crashlytics. All three products support advanced alerting, giving you practically full power over where you send alerts, how, to whom, and more. These products also support classical email alerting. Crashlytics additionally supports basic alerting capabilities with third-party integrations like Slack, Jira, and PagerDuty. We encourage you to set up alerts with these products if you haven't already and try it out. Thanks for taking time to learn about the power of cloud functions for Firebase. We look forward to supporting your teams to building and maintaining high-quality apps. Please join us in the Ask Firebase Lounge to ask any questions. Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot of notifications coming in. I wonder what that's all about. Let me take a look. Oh wait, that's coming from my own app. A few weeks ago, I had built a new app called Summit. This is an outdoors activities app that allows my users to discover trails and plan hiking trips. I had recently just implemented notifications. However, I realized that messages were being sent to everyone who's downloaded my app. This ends up being quite spammy to all of my users. Thankfully, Firebase messaging, which I may or may not be an engineer on, provides the ability to target. And today, we'll be taking a look at how we can fix Summit to send notifications only to those who will find these notifications useful. Hi, my name is Derek Chen, and I am indeed a software engineer on the Firebase messaging team. So, what is Firebase messaging, also known as FCM? Well, it is a no-cost service that allows you to send messages across Android, iOS, and web. Through the Firebase Admin SDK, the REST APIs, and campaigns on the Firebase console, you can send messages to all of users of your app or specific devices. While sending to all of your users might be a great idea, especially for events that pertain to everyone, such as a new version of Summit launching, we saw before that sending too many messages ends up with annoyed users who will end up skipping your messages or treating them like spam. Thankfully, Firebase Cloud Messaging has targeting capabilities that can help. This allows you to deliver personalized messages to subsets of your user base, allowing you to find and send messages to those that will find them most relevant. So instead of sending messages to all of your users or those with specific devices, you can target FCM notifications to groups of users in between using Google Analytics-based targeting, topics, and imported segments. We'll be going over each of these in today's talk. So let's first get started with analytics-based targeting. Like its name implies, for Google Analytics-based targeting, you'll need to enable Google Analytics within your app. Let's see how we can use analytics-based targeting to narrow down the users that you send messages to. So out of the box, analytics-based targeting already provides default user targeting criteria, such as version, language, country and region, first open, and last app engagement. These are very useful when, for example, you want to target specific users that use specific versions of your app or are located within a specific region. Since the weather has gotten a lot nicer, we want to send a reminder to our users, encouraging them to get out more outdoors recently. So who should we send this notification to? We probably don't want to send it to users who are already regularly using our app. So how about we send it to those who haven't opened our app in the past 2 weeks? For that, we can use the last app engagement targeting criteria. This will allow us to send a reminder to those who haven't opened our app within the last 2 weeks. While sending reminders to those who haven't opened our app in a while is already a great improvement over sending to everyone, this is still pretty broad, and our message is still pretty generic. Looking at our users, we can probably group them into more descriptive groups, such as skill level. Looking at Summit's users, we probably have hikers that range from beginners to intermediate to expert. A more customized message will be one that's personalized to each group. For example, we would want to send beginners a message such as, explore short 1 to 3 mile hikes near you. How do we go about doing this? Well, we can set this up using custom user properties. First, within our app, we can tag our users with properties, such as skill level or current region. After we set this up, we can then go to the Firebase console in order to define a custom definition. Once that is all done, now we can then select this as a targeting criteria when drafting a new messaging campaign within the Firebase console. And this allows us to send messages directly to these users with these analytics tags. If we wanted to combine multiple of these properties together, for more granular targeting, we can even create a user audience. This enables us to save an audience defined by a combination of properties. An example of how this could be useful for Summit could be creating an audience that has a skill level of expert located within the Northern California region, and then uses the app within English. Similar to before, once that's all set up, we can then select this user audience as a targeting criteria when we're setting up a message campaign. So now we'll be able to let our English app users that are expert hikers located in Northern California know that reservations for backpacking in Yosemite, which is also located in Northern California, are now open. We can even track metrics within the Firebase console and track how our audiences grow over time. So using Firebase Cloud Messaging with Google Analytics, we've seen how to customize our messages for subsets of our users through provided user targeting criteria, customized user properties, and user audiences. For each of these, Firebase keeps track of membership for you. The analytics properties, custom dimensions, and audiences are general to analytics as a whole, and they're usable across various Firebase products, so not just Firebase Cloud Messaging. This also allows you to view open counts and conversion metrics within your Firebase messaging console in order for you to determine the engagement of your messaging campaigns. So using analytics and user properties are a great way to customize your messages. However, there are a few limitations. First, there's a quota on the number of custom dimensions that you can create. Next, for your user properties can only be mapped to a single value. For example, the current region can only be set as Northern California or the Pacific Northwest, but not both. This gets tricky to set up for many one-to-many relationships. To solve this problem, let's see how we can use targeting via topic subscriptions. Let's say, for Summit users, we will want them to provide them with a way of favoriting trails so that they can get updates on trail conditions, such as inclement weather or trail closures. They may have multiple trails that they're currently watching, so there's no easy way to map this to an analytics user property. How will we send users these notifications based on the trails that they're interested in? Well, we can do this using FCM topics. First, we can create a trail condition topic for each trail. The example that we're using here is a trail condition for the Sparky Trail. Upon favoriting, we can then subscribe a user to this trail topic in the Summit app using client-side code. Once that is done, we can then select the Sparky Trail topic as targeting criteria within the Firebase console or the admin SDK. You can even combine multiple topics together using Boolean operators via topic conditions. So with topics, FCM also takes care of managing which of your users is subscribed or unsubscribed to a specific topic and fanning out your messages within a timely manner. Topics keeps your infrastructure simple. Imagine having to build all of this yourself. Finally, now that we saw topic membership can be handled through client-side subscriptions, what if we wanted to include server-side analytics? Well, for that, we can use imported segments. So to set up an example use case again, for Summit, we have a hiker's retreat coming up. Based on our users' hiking history and trail preferences, we have used an in-house analytics engine and identified a group of users who would be interested in signing up for our retreat. How can we deliver a targeted invitation to each of these users? Well, using imported segments, we can do that. Unlike targeting with Google Analytics or topics, for imported segments, we will, however, need to maintain an internal database that associates each user with their corresponding FCM registration tokens. Once our analytics engine runs on our internal database and identifies the users that we would want to label as retreat-interested users, we would have to import this group into BigQuery. Data is imported into BigQuery as two tables, a segment memberships table and a segments metadata table. For segment memberships, it contains the instance ID from each user's registration token and segment labels. The segment metadata table then contains all segment labels and display names used for use within the Firebase console. Once that's done, like before, we can now select this imported segment as retreat-interested users as our targeting campaign criteria. So by combining FCM with BigQuery, imported segments allows for a high degree of personalization for your message sends. It enables you to incorporate server-side analytics, either in-house or out of the box, to label specific groups of your users with segment labels. Then, through integration with Firebase messaging, you're able to deliver messages to these users with just a few clicks. So that brings us to the conclusion of targeting methods within FCM. Today, we've talked about 5 different targeting methods to improve how we can send engaging messages to our users. Using analytics, we explored how to send notifications to users using default user properties, custom user properties, and user audiences. Then, we saw how we can send messages to topic subscribers via client-side subscriptions using FCM topics. And finally, we were able to leverage server-side analytics in order to identify, label, and import these segments of our user base into BigQuery for targeting through imported segments. Using these tools, you're able to build and deploy your solutions within just a few clicks and just a few lines of code. So now that we've explored various ways to send notifications to specific users, I'm going to go back and fix Summit so that I don't end up spamming and overburdening my users with a ton of notifications. Using FCM's targeting capabilities, you can be more deliberate with your messaging campaigns, send engaging messages to relevant user segments, and measure the effectiveness of your campaigns. I hope all of this was helpful for all of you. I'm looking forward to seeing how all of you can improve your messaging with targeting within FCM. If you have any questions for today, I will be in the Ask Firebase Lounge after this to answer any questions. Thank you all for your time. Do you need this?
Thank you. All right. Welcome to building a Swift UI app with Firebase. Hello, how's it going, everybody? I hope you had a great Firebase Summit day at Firebase in New York City. I'm Charlotte Liang. I am a software engineer on the Firebase team, and my job is to make it easy for you building mobile apps on Apple platforms. Perhaps some of you have already started building a Swift UI app. I'm really curious to learn about your development experiences with Firebase. So after this talk, I'll be around the Ask Firebase Lounge by the end of the day. So don't hesitate, come talk to me. I'm looking forward to see some of you there. As you heard from the keynote, our mission is to make it easy for you building mobile apps and grow your users. Firebase is trying to remove the building block so you can focus on what you're really good at, making an app that your users love. And we try to make it easy to integrate our SDKs across all Apple platforms, from tvOS, macOS, iPadOS, to watchOS, so you can expand your business across the whole Apple universe. And thanks to the nature of Swift UI, it is possible to write the same code that can run around different Apple devices. Let's talk about Swift for a moment. The language helps eliminate a lot of errors, which results in a much faster development cycle. With a simple code base, you can now write the beautiful Apple applications in a much shorter time. As you start building a Swift UI, we learned that Apple has made some changes to the life cycles. And you probably wonder, has anything changed with Firebase? Well, this is what today's agenda is about. First, we're going to talk about what is the best way to initialize Firebase in a Swift UI app. Then we're going to talk about some of the new things we added in the SDKs. So now using Firebase in the Swift UI app is much easier. And lastly, we're going to take advantage of the things we learned today in the real-life examples to show you how to run your app with confidence. And to demonstrate all this, we're going to write the recipe app together. This is a Swift UI app that me and my colleague, Peter Fraze, which is in the crowd here, we built the app together for just about 2 weeks' time. I have to give credit to Peter, who is a phenomenal app developer, who built this beautiful app here. And we use Swift UI's navigation API that connects to the cloud, Google's cloud products to display some delicious-looking recipes. I hope you'll be hungry by the end of the talk to try out the new features in your app as well. But first, let's add Firebase to our app. After you register your app, download the plist file. You can now install the SDK directly from your Xcode using the Swift Package Manager. And now it shows a Swift UI version of the code to show you how to initialize Firebase. Let's take a closer look. Now if you start with a Swift UI lifecycle of the application, the app now launches with a custom struct that conforms to an app protocol. However, we still recommend to initialize Firebase in the app delegate to retrieve the best results. So you're going to use a UI application delegate adapter, which is a property wrapper. What it does is that it tells the Swift UI to use your own app delegate. And then inside your own app delegate, you can now initialize Firebase just like you used to. Now that we started with Firebase, let's talk about what exactly the products that we use to really quickly help us ramp up our development flow so we can enter this foodie market in a much shorter time. First, you want to get your users logged in. Your users are uploading their personal information. You want to make sure they're protected. For this case, my grandma's secret recipe. After your users log in, you can now upload your recipe information to the cloud. Here we're using Cloud Firestore to serve the database and the Firebase storage to serve the file storage. For this case, you will upload the images of the recipe to the cloud. so that later when your users sign in from a different device, they're able to retrieve their information as well. And here, all our cloud products are built on Google Cloud, which give you the infinite scalabilities. It means that when your app becomes viral, like TikTok viral, when there's millions of users coming into your server, you don't have to worry about your server get crashed, because Google Cloud just automatically take care of that. And Firebase Authentication provides a variety of security providers, from email passwords to a list of social media login, including Facebook, Google sign-in, Twitter, and sign-in with Apple. It also supports Game Center login for game developers. After you log in with your users, now it's time to set up the recipe information in the database. Here we're using Firestore, which is a NoSQL real-time database. It supports real-time read and write between your app and the cloud. Here I want to introduce to you this new property wrapper called Firestore Query. It makes it much easier for the user in Swift UI. It's really powerful, and it does two things. The first thing is, traditionally when you fetching Firestore data, it becomes like a data object, and you still have to decode it so you can access the internal information, for this case, the recipe. I'm trying to replay the videos. Let's do it again. Yeah, traditionally, you have decoded. But with this property wrapper, you don't have to decode anymore. And the second magic is a live sync with your UI. So as you see on this demo, anything you change on the console, which is in the cloud, it automatically reflects on your app. With property wrapper, you don't have to do anything extra to tell the UI, hey, it's time to refresh, because property wrapper automatically listens to the change of the parameter, just like a state object. And the best part is, it only takes one line to implement this. This is really convenient. Here I want to call out, this is a collaboration with one of our open source contributors, whose name is Flo. This is what I love about having an open source developer community, where Flo is able to detect the use case that works for him, and he worked with Firebase team to launch this feature. So now all the Firebase users can use this. Now let's take a look at how we can set this up. First, we're going to use Firestore console to set up the data. So you want to start with a collection called recipes, and inside it has a list of documents. Each document represents a recipe. And on the third column, it shows all the fields you want to set up, which is the property of the recipe, like description, name, image location, etc. And now let's go to the Swift UI app. We're going to start writing a struct of a recipe with a list of variables that mapping to the data that you set up on the console. Here we're conformed to a codable protocol. Because we added a codable support, now it's much easier to encode and decode data between this recipe object and your Firestore data. But with the property wrapper, it's even easier. Now you just have to specify this one line of code, and you don't have to handle decoding anymore. So by creating a Firestore query, by giving a collection path, well, for this case, the recipes, and it automatically transit whatever on the console to this array of recipe. And now you can directly use it in the UI. And here we integrate over all the elements in the recipes and display the information to this app. And now that we realize the beauty and the power of property wrapper, we added in remote config as well. Now you can define a property wrapper that listens to a config key. So if you need multiple config parameters in your UI app, you can define multiple property wrappers. And then it automatically syncs with your UI whenever your config is activated. Here we want to emphasize that you still control when the remote config is activated. And this is another collaboration with one of our open source contributors, whose name is Fumito. As Firebase team is trying to modernize our SDKs, developers like you, Flo, or Fumito are the driving force to shape the future of our SDKs. Because you're building the app, you have the first-hand experiences, and you live through your pain points. And each of you have a different kind of business. So we really encourage you to voice your feedback. And use GitHub channel as the communication, no matter it's file feature requests, bug issues, or even just like send out pull request. I'm really looking forward to see more of these kind of collaborations coming up in the future. And here's how we implement it. We start with a remote config property by providing a config key that you want to listen to. And here, there's a fallback value. It is used when there's no, for example, if there's a config key doesn't exist in the remote config system, or maybe you put in a typo. And then the value will return as a null. But if you don't check in your UI code, it will crash, because Swift is a strict type language. So to make it easy for you, you cannot have a fallback value to always tell the property wrapper to fall back to a default value if such value doesn't exist. And now you can use this config value directly in your UI. And you can also call in remote config to fetch and activate when this view component become visible to your app, so that the property wrapper always listens to the latest activated config values. And this is how it shows up in the app. Now you can see the system images has changed from a circle shape to a square shape. Now let's take a look at how exactly we can take advantage of these things we just learned into real-life examples. One of the greatest things of using remote config is to launch your features in a more controlled fashion, right? You want to perhaps you don't want your users to always download new versions whenever you launch a new feature. And you also want to perhaps just roll out to a small group of users before you launch to the general public. And while you're targeting the small group of users, you might also monitor for crashes and performance. And if you detect anything that is unexpected, you can find the root cause, fix the issue, and then launch it when you're confident. I can do this whole flow with Firebase products without building your in-house solution. For our case, we want to launch a mini game, but we weren't sure how the public receive it. So we're thinking to launch it only to a specific audience. We're thinking the vegans. Here, we're using an analytics screen API in the Google Analytics SDK. What it does is it logs an analytics screen view event that you can specify an actual parameter. For here, we type in the recipe type. Because this is implemented with a custom view modifier internally, so it makes it more Swift UI friendly. You can now call this directly attached to any view components in your Swift UI. So for here, we attach to a recipe detail view. So what it does is, anytime a user type into a recipe, we're logging the device type, recipe type. So now we collect all these recipe types that our users are tapping into. And now we want to focus on the vegan. So we're going to the analytics console by creating an audience called vegan lovers. And it has the screen view event contains the parameter only contains vegan. And now you can enable this feature by going to the remote config console by creating a condition that with a matching audience in Google Analytics with the vegan lover. And now you let the game run for a while. You observe the data from Google Analytics and Crash Analytics dashboard. And it seems like you get a lot of retentions from analytics results, and with minimum crashes. Now you're confident to roll out this feature. And that's it. If you're curious about more of this kind of customization or A/B testing, check out the app personalization feature in remote config. And don't forget to check out our repo in GitHub. This is the best channel where you can contact me and my team directly regarding talking about more of your business use case or file a feature request. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay in New York City, and thank you for listening in.
All right. Hi, everyone. Hi. My name is Jeff, and more important than my name is a really important question for you. Who here loves figuring out JWTs? Anybody? Yeah? Someone from the authentication engineering team sneak in here? Well, I don't either, which is why I wrote this talk. I don't like figuring out JWTs. I don't like remembering what HTTP headers to attach to requests. I don't like figuring out password salts. And that's why I really like Firebase authentication. Instead of worrying about all these details, Firebase authentication gives me what I really need. A login function where I can sign in a user, a hook where I can listen to see if the user is signed in or not so that I can update my app state accordingly, and security rules so that I can still control access to my database safely. And this model is really nice because instead of worrying about so many small details, I just think, okay, I have an app, it's going to talk to a database, and I have an app, it's going to talk to cloud storage. And this really simple model, with the help of app check and security rules, means that I can write my app quickly and just have this really simple model instead of worrying about API layers and JWTs and passing the right auth state around between services. And inside this world protected by app check and security rules, I can also trigger background cloud functions like based on a database write or upload to storage to do things like copy image metadata from a new upload to storage into Firestore. And this world is so comfortable for client apps because Firebase owns the server, and Firebase gives me some magic client SDKs that handle passing the right authentication tokens back and forth. But today we're going to venture a little bit outside this comfortable world and instead talk about doing a little bit of authentication ourselves on the server when we need it. So first, let's talk about when we might need a server. I already mentioned background tasks, for example, uploading an image and then copying some of that metadata into storage. And that's kind of covered because we can trigger our functions behind app check and security rules. But there are other use cases too. For example, if I'm building a game that has some pretty complicated game logic that I want to run on a server to make sure people aren't cheating, I might need an API that my app can call to verify if a new move or turn is valid. I also might want to let people build their own clients so that they can access my app services in creative new ways and support platforms that maybe I haven't built an app for yet. And finally, maybe I'm trying to really increase my page render speed and get things to my website to render more quickly for users. In that case, I might want to server render my website, and that has its own considerations outside of the comfortable client-oriented Firebase authentication world. And when I'm doing stuff on the server, I need a powerful SDK to help me out, and that's the Firebase Admin SDK. Since it's designed to be run in a trusted environment instead of a client app that I have no control over, I can do some extra stuff that I can't otherwise. I can use a whole bunch of common server languages to connect to Firebase services without worrying about security rules. And this is really powerful and great because a lot of times on the server we might want to do bulk reads or bulk writes and not worry about impersonating a specific user to access specific data. The admin SDK also lets me generate and verify auth tokens, which we'll come back to later. So if we have Cloud Functions for Firebase, and we have an admin SDK where we can do stuff, why is this a problem? Well, let's work through it. If I have an HTTP endpoint, like a REST API, it has to be open to the world so that people can access it and call it. And this endpoint that's open to the world and takes whatever data people send to it is using the Firebase admin SDK because it's running on the server. And this admin SDK can't impersonate a user, and it has access to all my Firebase services. Can anyone see why this might be a problem? All right, so it's a little scary, but we're going to work through some common approaches to solve use cases. Let's start off with that example I mentioned about complex game logic, where instead of my app talking directly to real-time database or Firestore, first it calls an API that verifies if a move is valid. In that case, it's actually pretty easy. We can use callable functions. These are an extra layer on top of HTTP functions that make it easy to pass data back and forth between the client app and the server. The reason this is easy is because we're still kind of within that Firebase box. We know that our app that we control is using the Firebase SDK, and the Firebase SDK gives us this standardized interface where we can pass data back and forth. And on every request, it also attaches the auth context, so is somebody logged in and who are they? And also the app check status. Is this app a verified app that I know that I control and not just somebody trying to spoof me? And so if this is all we need to do, it's actually pretty simple, and this is what the code looks like. Beyond the boilerplate on the top and bottom for setting up a cloud function, a callable function, I can check in the request object and say, hey, is there an app check? Is there any app check information? If not, I can fail early and reject the request. Same with authentication. The authentication status is baked right into the request object, and so I can check if somebody's logged in at all. I can check who the user is, and maybe I have some metadata stored in Firestore where I need to look up a little bit more about them. But in general, I have all this information, and that way I can safely execute whatever code I need to in my function. But there is a more complicated use case, and that's when it's not just my app calling the API, it's also third-party apps, so other developers that want to build their own clients to talk to my services. And since we don't control their apps, we don't know if they're using a Firebase SDK. We have to rely on standards instead. And for that, we'll use HTTP authorization headers. The idea here is that a developer at some point registers with us as a developer that wants to talk to our services, and we grant them an authentication ID token. And then this secret value, they need to send with every request. So that's what this diagram is showing. The API consumer, a developer, gets an ID token from Firebase Auth at some point, and then adds it to their app, and every request they make to our function has this bearer token. And this bearer token is then checked. This bearer token is then checked by our function against Firebase authentication to make sure that this user is valid. And it also contains information about this user that we could look up in Firestore if we have any extra metadata about banned API users or something like that. And here's an idea of what that looks like in code. So this first snippet is what the third-party developer would do. So they would fetch against any URL in our server that we have open and simply just attach the bearer token as an authorization header. On our end, when we receive a request, we look in the headers, make sure there is a bearer token, and if there is, we can call the admin SDK's verify ID token method to get information about this user, decode the ID token. And that's pretty much it for APIs with our functions. So let's talk about something that's kind of like an API, but also very different. Like an API, server-rendered websites are some HTTP endpoint we leave open to the world so that people can access it. But could you imagine if your browser, every time you tried to go to a website, said, hey, can you copy and paste your ID token so that I can send it as an authorization header to the server? I don't think any of us would use the internet if that's the way it worked. So instead, we have to use a different standard to get server-rendered websites to work. And we'll use cookies for that. So the way it works is on the first request to a protected route in our site, the browser will just send a GET request. The server will say, hey, there are no cookies here. Go sign in and come back later when you are signed in. When this user is signing in, they'll sign in client-side against Firebase authentication. And similar to our bearer token flow earlier, they'll send a request to our server with an authorization header and their Firebase ID token. Just like before, the server will verify this bearer token against Firebase authentication to make sure it's real. But the difference here is that when it sends a response back to the browser, this response will contain a cookie. And this cookie contains a top secret code that the browser will then automatically attach to every new request so that it can send along authentication context about the user. Now, when the user tries to access the protected route again, The browser sends along that cookie. The server checks and sees it is valid, thanks to Firebase authentication, and it can actually return the web page. And now, instead of a user going in there and typing in an ID token, the browser handles all of this automatically for us. And here's a quick look at how it would look to implement this. So when the user first signs in on the sign-in page in the browser, we'll call the Firebase Client SDK's getIDToken function. Then, just like before with our bearer token flow, we'll fetch against a special URL on our server, getCookieURL in my example, and send a request with an authorization header. The server will respond with a cookie by calling the admin SDK's createSessionCookie method, and then attach that cookie to its response. Then, on every subsequent page request, when the browser does send along a cookie, we can parse the cookie and call the admin SDK's verifySessionCookie function to make sure the cookie is real and get information about the user. So overall, it's not the most complicated flow in the world, but there are some pitfalls to worry about. First off, our cookie settings. We want to make sure that people aren't creating their own cookies to try and trick us. We want to make sure cookies expire if we want people to not be logged in forever on our site. And we want to make sure that everything stays secure. It's also a bit tricky with these server-rendered frameworks where they create some HTML on the server, send it to the client, and then spin up client SDKs on the client for more reactivity. It can be hard to pass the auth state that we've already verified on the server into the client. So that's something else to think about. And finally, since we're using the server, we're still using the admin SDK, and that means we can't impersonate a user to have security rules applied to their requests. So we have to implement our own logic to protect our data. But overall, I think we found a few techniques to make sure that we can do auth on the server without it being too scary. We can step a little bit outside of Firebase's comfortable client-oriented world and still be able to keep our data secure. With background triggers, we can make sure our functions only run when a service that's behind security rules and app check has been triggered. We can use callable functions to automatically send along authentication state and app check state. We can create authenticated HTTPS endpoints with authorization headers. And we can do cookie-based auth with a combination of authorization headers and a cookie flow. Now, as an added bonus, the newly announced dynamic framework support for hosting is working on making this cookie flow a lot more simple. So in the future, you might see things like being able to use the client SDKs on the server, or even this cookie auth being handled automatically for you. So please check out the new dynamic framework support if you're interested in that. But overall, thanks for spending this time nerding out on functions with me. If you want to talk anything more about functions and auth or anything else Firebase, I'll be in the Ask Firebase lounge after the talk. So please come chat with me. My name is Jeff again. And with that, thanks for watching. And I'm going to introduce Puff and Rachel back on the stage.
Nice. I like that. I need to drop something on the desk here. Pretend that this didn't happen, please. Thank you. That was a lot of talks. There's still quite some people here.
Yeah. Well, there's people here. There's people in the expert-led classes. So the expert-led classes are still going on.
Yeah, which is why we have some time. We have some break time now, which is good because I'm not sure how it is about you, but I need more of that Firebase coffee.
Yeah. Who has gone and gotten coffee today? Please. OK, who hasn't gotten coffee? Oh my gosh, how are you all surviving? Like, my blood is coffee.
That is true, actually, yeah. Didn't have enough coffee yet, that's all I can say, but that's for sure. Hey, we took some pictures again while the people were presenting here. And so let's have a look at some more pictures. This is one of the reasons I love this venue. The views are gorgeous.
Yeah.
So let's do the next one. Who do we have here, Rachel?
These are a lot of the people that were in the keynote. We have Kara, we have Anam, we have Jerome, we have Iman. Who is that, Thomas? So yeah, some Firebasers, they're hanging out. But have you all seen this? This is your Insta background. Go take your picture in front of this. I think it's like right here.
Actually, that might be the next one. Let's go to the next picture. No, that's not the one. Who took an expert-led class?
Oh, good.
Yeah, that
like
must have been the early one because they're also going on now. Yeah, so this is one of the expert-led classes. It was fun to see people working on these. This is the Android one. Sorry, there was a Flutter expert-led class also going on. So we love those, and keep in mind the content for most of these things is available online, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's do one more picture. Yes. Who tried to hack Firebase? It was a challenge we did. Yeah. Did anyone here get a Sparky plushie?
Oh, we have a winner down here, and someone else.
Can I have them back, please? Because those were like my... No? Oh. That was
so I heard... So, Puff, did you hear the numbers that they said?
No, tell me.
There were 40 people that hacked it that were successful. I was shocked. I was like, I didn't think that anyone would be able to, but 40 people did. That's like, oh gosh.
So that is awesome. And I've heard that some more Sparky show up. Sparky is like amazing. He's very shy. But then when there's other Sparkies around, there's like suddenly more Sparkies. So if you haven't tried to hack the Hack Firebase Challenge yet, see if they're still around. I think I had one more picture or not?
Oh, yeah.
Right, you all went to registration. This one is not important now, but once we're back from the last break, we need to tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, but yeah, I think there's just like, for you all, if you want to come, so Ignite Talks are done, expert-led classes are finishing up, and so we have a little break for a little while until 3:45. So you all who are here, we just talked about coffee, but we also have all the demos that are out there. If you all want to take advantage of those before the closing, but then also like make sure you get your pictures taken. There's photo booths. Do the hack challenge. Check out, and I think you have something underneath your cards right there. Here.
Where?
Puff. Here.
Right. I swear, I'm very awake. We have Dear Firebase. Who has filled out a postcard yet?
So if you
yes, thank you for that. So we love getting feedback. We try to remember everything people told us during the day. It turns out we're not always good at that. We sometimes like forget something. So the best way to give us your feedback is not to drop paper on the floor, but to grab one of these, because on the back it says, Dear Firebase, I love you. I love that you. And then, but I wish that you. So you can tell us what you love about Firebase, thank you for that. And you can tell us what you would like for us to do more of, and also thank you for that. Yeah. We have people actually reading these, like we're taking notes, we're classifying them, and then we're yelling at the product teams on your behalf with that. So, thank you for that.
We show them areas for opportunity.
Isn't that what I said? When I say yelling, like you know me, I yell when there's a good talk going on, but that's about it. The other one is a postcard that you can write on whatever you want and send to somebody. But I love it, so I grabbed one right away.
And you can find those like at the Ask Firebase Lounge. Right next to it, you'll see a thing that says Dear Firebase. So catch one of those postcards.
My card says that we're done for now.
Oh yeah, we are. I think until 3:45. Come back here in here for closing remarks. 3:45.
See you all here in a few.
Enjoy this.
Bye. Apparently, I'm not supposed to skip because my microphone drops out of my pocket.
Oh, I had that when I was tossing those balls. My microphone went flying, almost hit someone in the head. It was awful. The perils of a live show. What do you see?
They're still here.
They are. Did they like this thing?
I think they might have. Like, I guess so. Who liked being here today? Just so you know, I like things that are official, and on my official note card of what I'm officially going to say on this stage here, it says that I loved seeing you. But seriously, I wrote these myself, of course. There's no way to make me happier than to be in a room full of developers geeking out about Firebase. And
Puff literally started crying this morning a little bit because we are so happy to see you all again in person. It's just so amazing to see everybody.
Okay.
And I broke your microphone.
No, you did not. The wire just went loose. No, this is. We built Firebase to help developers build better apps. Right? It's been our tagline for 10 years. It's no more difficult than that. Meeting so many of you today and hearing what you work on is truly what drives us. It's why we do this.
And so many like transformational stories. I mean, some of you all have come from different types of backgrounds and things like that, and hearing all the different projects you work on and the way your lives have been changed by what we work on is just amazing to us. So thank you so much for sharing all your stories.
Also, this morning, because we sometimes forget things, but luckily we have people that started with Firebase that remind us. It's apparently been 8 years since Firebase joined Google. And Rachel and I were talking about it because we've been there for a bit of that time, and we've seen how much Firebase has grown in that time. How much from starting on like a real-time database and then adding some authentication, adding a hosting product, and then going to Google and adding like 13, 15 more products. And the power that that brings to developers, right? When we started, serverless was relatively new. Real-time data sync wasn't really a thing yet. Now, if you do a new like cloud-hosted database, you better have a story around offline. You better have a story around real-time. And that's good. We like that. We also like it when you keep challenging us. So please fill out these cards. But even if this one doesn't say it, but like, please, Firebase, I wish you would do more of this. Please always give us that feedback. It's really important to us. I'm looking for a red. There's a red light. Hey there, everyone on the live stream. Believe it or not, I also really like that you were all here. I've been reading the comments on YouTube like during all the breaks. I loved seeing you. And thank you for all the feedback. Thank you for all the excitement about the announcements. I really liked seeing that.
I wanted to ask, because I saw them around. I just wanted to ask real fast. I saw a few people walking in with them. Who did the challenge? All right, did anyone win it? Do you have something really special that you're bringing home with you today? Can you hold it up? You all see this? Hold on.
Rachel. Please keep holding them up. Yay! Okay.
So that's our Sparky.
Now, seriously, I said this earlier. Can I have them all back, please? I miss my Sparkies. Just kidding, of course.
They're so rare and they're amazing. So if you have one, well done, well done.
Congratulations. Who did any other like activities, demos?
Did y'all find the demos over here? Yeah?
It was getting more crowded. Who met somebody new who was into like the same type of technology that they are? Okay. Good, that's important, right? That's why we're here. Okay.
And about those demos, really fast, if you didn't get a chance to do them in person here, they're actually going to be on the website for you all to play them even after. So if you'd want to try the hack challenge, if you want to do the pinball, you can do those afterwards. So if you didn't get a chance to do them today, or virtually if you didn't get a chance, check it out, because you can do those for the next little while after the event.
That is awesome about it. We also took some pictures. Let's just get them rolling behind us. This is from the Firebase Summit this year, but also from some previous years. If you recognize a place that you've been to, just make noise. We don't mind if we get interrupted. That's totally okay. Okay, Rachel, are we almost ready to kick everyone home?
I think so. I think it's been a day. There's been a lot of content.
There has been. I have a few announcements to make, because you might not know, but I do two things quite regularly for Firebase. I answer some questions sometimes, and then I do a monthly release note show.
A few questions. Have you all, you know Stack Overflow, and like Puff's name is nearly synonymous now with like...
Hey! Okay, I answer a lot of Firebase questions. But I also do a monthly release note show about new releases, and guess what the next one is going to be about, right? So we're going to be talking about that. So next Tuesday, please check out the my top 5 takeaways from the Firebase Summit. And okay, there's not going to be any spoilers, because you know all the releases already, but do check it out. We're going to have footage from the event also there. Okay, do take pictures and to continue to share. What else did we have?
I think there's maybe one more thing that people have to do before they leave today.
Really?
Yeah, one more thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, one more thing.
Really? What would that be?
I think they're going to get something special.
Yeah, that looks. You should look at it. Look at this.
Oh wow!
It's also upside down, by the way.
Well, look at
really
that!
Nice.
Look at that!
Look,
Look at that!
They get a beautiful. Oh, blue. I should. They might not get this. Okay. Apparently. Again, I want to thank you all for being here today. Do grab a t-shirt on your way out. It's at the registration desk where this morning you signed in.
Yeah.
It's going to be the last stop before you head into New York City.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you so much for being a host
today.
Thank you. It's so awesome. And thank you everyone for being at Firebase Summit.
Thank you so much. And we really hope that we get to do this again.
We'll see you at next year's Firebase Summit.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what all of you build next.